time, folks. Enjoy the show.
The moment our fellow geeks, weebs, nerds, and other unfortunates have been fervently waiting for has finally arrived. It's time for TMI, Confessionals of the Nerd Kind. And now, your hosts, Jeff Nerf Herder Chandler, Jim Kaiju Baker, and Christina Yojimbo Henry. You can continue. And now, let's get on with the show. Here is TMI.
Yeah, we could just breeze right through this Jungle Cruise and get to what the meat of this episode is going to be.
Do you want to just cut Jungle Cruise altogether?
No, we got to talk about it.
We have to talk about it. I know we have to talk about it, but it's just
yeah.
So hang on tight, kids, if you're listening already.
So yeah, we're in. So this is a very, very special episode
For the both of us. Episode of TMI.
Yes. Not only have we been waiting to cover the 1976 version of King Kong, but the opportunity just came up brilliantly because Shout Factory put out the Blu-ray.
Yeah, but we've been sitting on it for 3 months.
We've been sitting on it for 3 months because we always like to pair things up with something that makes sense.
Oh, speaking of which, I don't want to derail your thought right there, but we got some major kudos on Instagram for this last week's pairing of Snake Eyes and.
We got a lot of comments on our Twitter site because of the movie.
Nice.
Because I follow lots of horror fans and lots of simpatico Twitter users. You know, I've searched them out and I followed them, and if I'm lucky, they follow us back.
Yep.
And
which is the way that works, by the way.
That's you play the game.
You try,
right?
Yeah.
So we're following well over 1,000 Twitter users, and what I do each week is do a search of our movie title and see of the people that I follow who has posted like a loving or a tribute kind of a Twitter. Yeah. Yep. And usually I get a good 20-25 hits with the movies that we cover.
Okay.
So those are the people that I then tag on Twitter because I know that they have a vested interest in one of these movies that we're covering. Right. And hopefully I'll get some conversation going, some back and forth. And I got a lot of it on.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
But I think that's the great thing about this format is that we can talk new stuff, which we know people are going to go see. Maybe not as much as they were seeing it, but then, hitting on those older movies that people maybe forgot about or have love for. Yeah, I didn't necessarily have any love for, but I do. I do remember it.
It's in your brain. It's in that movie DNA that you've got going.
Yeah, and it's funny because, like you said, I actually follow Reb Brown, who was the original Captain America on the TV show, and he is in that movie. And I'm just waiting for the opportunity to be like, dude, I just saw this movie. I can't believe that snake really bit your foot, and just try to get him to engage in a conversation. But
I tagged Kevin Smith on this episode because I see a lot of correlation between, I just love to do that, by the way. I see a lot of correlation between that and his movie Tusk, which is somebody over the course of the movie turning into a walrus.
Yeah, that's right.
He did not take the bait.
Listen, I'll tell you right now, that man's busy.
Yeah, he's doing Clerks 3, right?
As of tomorrow, he will start filming Clerks 3, and I don't want to jump the gun at all in any way, shape, or form, and I'm not throwing names out there, but we may have somebody in the know on the ground in the filming.
Woo!
So maybe we'll get an exclusive a day before the movie drops. Who knows? But yes, and that's all I can say about that.
Okay.
So anyway,
stay tuned.
Yeah. So what are we actually talking about this week?
We already teased King Kong 1976. That's going to be our second feature. So if you are tuning in just for that, feel free to fast forward through Jungle Cruise because that's what we're going to do.
So 12 minutes from now?
But just about.
12 minutes.
So, it's semantics, but our main feature is actually Jungle Cruise,
which just dropped on Thursday.
Yeah.
In theater and on Disney Plus.
Did you go to the theater?
So I had every intention of going to the theater on Friday. And so I get home and I'm changing. And I said to my wife, I said, do you want to come with me? Is it opening weekend? I said, yes. But when I went to go see Black Widow, 2 other people in the theater. I can't imagine that there's that many more people that are going to be here. Well, I don't know. I got to get dressed, blah, blah, blah. I said, I said, well, it is on Disney Plus. Can we watch it at home? Absolutely. I said, we'll plunk down our $30. I said, we'll order some Chinese and we'll chill out. So we had a date night and we watched together Friday night.
Oh,
yeah. So I did not have my theater going experience and stayed home instead.
Well, there's something to be said for that. I did as
There
well.
is.
The whole family sat down, watched that one, and I was glad that we had a movie this week. And it has been for the past few weeks. We've had family-oriented movies.
Yeah, family. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm guessing next week Suicide Squad, not so family.
No,
friendly.
that is an R-rated film. So
Is it R? Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
I think it's going to pair up nicely with our second feature then.
I think it will.
Yeah, indeed. So there you go. So that's what we're going to be talking about. Do you want to hit some news and then
Sure.
we'll get in?
Yeah.
Okay. So we need to talk about this right up front, which is this lawsuit that Scarlett Johansson has dropped on Disney. She is basically
Yes.
claiming that they've screwed her out of money by dropping us on Disney Plus.
I don't know if this would have happened if it did gangbusters in theaters and on Disney Plus, but it didn't. It dropped precipitously the second weekend in theaters. I still don't. It's nebulous
See,
about
this
what
is-
the numbers are from Disney Plus.
Yeah, Disney Plus has not been releasing their numbers, and I think that's part of the problem, which is the fact that her contract states box office. So is this a workaround with these? I think this is the same, when these movies started dropping on streaming services without paid premiums, how do you get paid back on those? And Disney immediately fired back. According to the box office records, it made 80 million in North America, and it earned an additional 78 million overseas and 60 million on Disney Plus. But it's still, that's under 400 million, where most of these Marvel movies are like in the billions,
Right.
So yeah, this is it for her. She's not this character anymore. So she's probably, and listen, I'm not going to sit here and hold your hand because you only made 30 million and not 70. It's like De Niro crying, he's got to keep working to keep his seventh wife happy. So Disney fired back and claimed that there's no merit whatsoever to this, and said it's especially, this was interesting that they kind of threw this. It's especially sad and distressing in its callous disregard for the horrific and prolonged global effects of the COVID-19 pandemic.
Threw her right under the bus.
Yeah, which is like, how dare you be so self-absorbed?
I am shocked that, first of all, that they even responded publicly to this. Usually you don't see a response. The corporation is silent.
Right. The second week and we talked about this, was it last week, that the numbers, like you said, just dropped. I mean, like 80%. It's crazy.
Yeah.
So everyone who wanted to go see it in the theater saw it in the theater and then said, that's it. We're done. We don't need to see it anymore.
So I'm going to be interested to see what happens, because we know that Snake Eyes did not do well, which is a shame because that is a fun movie. If you listened to last week's episode, you would know that.
Not according to most people who reviewed it. I've seen a few, I follow quite a few reviewers on Instagram. And the one thing I don't like, which is the minute someone comes out and they're like, oh, I saw this movie and it's crap, don't go see it. And then someone's like, oh, I'm glad you told me that. I don't want to waste my money. Don't take my word for it. Go see the freaking movie. You and I are just two idiots with opinions, right? Don't be, well, Jeff and Jim didn't like it. I guess that's the world we live in now. People got precious time, well, I was going to invest two hours in that movie, but if you're telling me it's crap, then I guess I don't need to go see it. But the rest of Disney's quote is that they fully complied with her contract. And furthermore, the release of Black Widow on Disney Plus with Premier Access has significantly enhanced her ability to earn additional compensation on top of the $20 million she has received to date. So they're already getting backlash for announcing what her pay was for the movie. I don't think it's that hard to find that, right?
Probably not, but
No.
they are admitting there that whatever box office kickback that she was going to be getting, she's also getting from
She's
that
getting
Premier
something.
Access.
So my guess is that any contract moving forward has to take this into account.
There's a number of factors that may come into play here because the media is full of news about the Delta variant of COVID. So maybe people are just scared again to go back out.
Well,
You don't
yeah,
know.
we actually have a news story about that as well. But what's interesting is that immediately Emma Stone is now contemplating a
Yes.
lawsuit concerning Cruella because it was the same. Listen, you're going to ride on coattails of Scarlett
Right.
Johansson.
Yeah. She's contemplating, which means she's going to see if this one is successful for
Absolutely.
Scarlett, right?
Yeah, you go out, you test the waters, you see what's,
Yeah.
does Disney just give her shut up money? Because like I said, she's done with her contract. She's
But they
done with
can't
these
be
movies.
blamed. You know, we do joke about this actor crying about they didn't get the extra 30 million. But that, if you think about it,
Yeah.
if you're going to be paid $100 for a job that you're expecting and you only get paid 30 or 40, like where's my extra 60? You know, it's that
I
you want what
know.
you're entitled to.
Yes, correct. Especially when you look around and you see all your peers who are being compensated or getting this. I used to have it out with my buddy who worked in Wall Street, and a couple years ago things started to dry up, and his bonus, which was probably more than what I made in a year, he got half of it. And I'm like, oh, boo-hoo you. And he's like, no, but you don't understand. You know, my base salary is my base salary, but you base like your living expenses on the fact that each year you get a bonus that's X amount of dollars. Okay, I guess. So in that regard, yeah, she made this movie. She said, all right, well, here's my pay, but based on what the back end, which they all get back end now.
Or you live like a king, just lower your standards. That's
one less gold-plated SUV. Is that what you're playing?
Yeah.
So I find it. So I mentioned Emma Stone is now considering for Cruella because she's in the exact same boat. But I don't think it's to a lesser degree. It's not an MCU character. It's not, it's a one-off. But now Gerard Butler has also sued the studio that produced the Olympus Has Fallen series, because now he's claiming that he did not get compensated.
Oh, I thought you were going to say the company that made his teeth for $300 did some irreparable damage to his gums.
That lawsuit was settled out of court, by the way. But what you just brought up before with this Delta variant, which could very well be another kick in the teeth to the theater company, is that Paramount has now pulled Clifford the Big Red Dog from their September schedule because of Delta concerns. So here we go again.
Yeah. Oh no, James Bond. What's going to happen?
No, if they pull Bond, that's insane. I can't even keep up.
They should have got that out immediately. That should have been playing already, like 3 months ago.
But that's the problem with Black Widow too, is how long did we wait for that? How long did they sat on it going, well, what do we do with this?
But you see, Godzilla versus Kong didn't have these problems. That did great.
No, it's Godzilla.
You say that, but King of Monsters, as much as we loved it, it didn't do well.
I still don't get that.
I don't know. I
don't understand that at all. And the only other news item I wanted to bring up is to send out some well wishes to Bob Odenkirk.
Yes.
Who collapsed on set last week.
Of Better Call Saul, his show.
Yeah, Better Call an Ambulance.
Oh, and I'm sure they did immediately.
They did, yeah. I guess he went into cardiac arrest. He had some heart issues, is what they keep referring to it as. But anyways, he sounds like he's home.
So, it sounds like he is on the mend. He is on the mend.
But still, that's scary stuff. So we're with you on that one, Bob. Kong?
Kong? We're not starting with Kong.
Damn it.
We are starting with Jungle Cruise. It's going to be quick. It's going to be brief. So don't worry, all you Kong files that are tuning in. So this is yet another Disney movie based on an attraction at one of the theme parks.
Space
a beloved
Mountain.
attraction. Now, Jungle Cruise, I believe, was operational opening day at Disneyland. That's one of the originals, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I actually, you would reference the behind the attractions on Disney Plus. The series.
What's funny is the Jungle Cruise episode is the only one I have not seen as of yet.
Oh, really? I did watch it last night just for
did.
this episode, just to see if there was anything. It is interesting, how they came about and built it, and the evolution of the whole skipper and whatnot. So, but yeah, I think it was there from day one. It's literally when you walk into the park in Florida, it's to the left, right behind Main Street. It's actually, you want to hear a story? I'll give you a quick little story, which was Walt Disney actually had an apartment up over the firehouse, right? Isn't that correct? So he stayed there one night early when they were building this thing out, and they could not turn off the sounds to the jungle. So all night long, he's like, and
if you're sleeping in the Magic Kingdom, that's what you want to hear.
No, apparently this is not what he wanted to hear. So, because it was literally like out his back window, and they couldn't figure out how to turn off the noise. Yeah, that was fun. That was a neat little behind the scenes.
It blows my mind though, that just showing how interconnected and compact that park is, even though it's huge and sprawling. That to know if you're walking down Main Street, because you're in a different world every section of that park when you go into it. The fact that, and these things, it boggles your mind to think that worlds are colliding here, that the Adventureland exists in the same space that Main Street USA does, and to know that Jungle Cruise is just over the top of these buildings, you just can't see it.
They talked a lot about the planting of the trees to obscure any view of anything else other than what you're surrounded by. And that, I can't remember the guy who actually helped pioneer he literally just took a stick and dragged it as a map to here's where the river's going to run, and then they carved it out. This was the one in California, I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
And it is a substantial ride. It's you're on it for a long time, so it takes up a lot of space.
Yeah,
in the park.
Yeah, and I guess it wasn't until like the second go round where they actually put the tracks in. Otherwise, it was just a free floating boat. Like the captain was actually really driving.
He was really driving the boat.
Yeah, now it's all automated. So yeah, let's get into it. So this is another movie that was sitting in a can for quite a while. We were waiting for this thing to drop. Dwayne Johnson and Emily Blunt. Both very likable actors.
Yeah. Emily Blunt having a great year, coming right off Quiet Place 2. Yeah. And almost immediately into Jungle Cruise here. Well, I don't know when they were filmed.
I was going to say, she might have actually filmed this beforehand. Who knows?
Yeah, who knows?
Yes. And The Rock, who's just pretty much in everything now. He actually executive produced that Behind the Attraction.
Yeah, right? the whole series he executive produces.
Yeah, I did watch the Star Tours one as well, by the way. So yeah, this is we opened right up with what I can only say is like a Spanish version of Stairway to Heaven. Like, what is that music? It's not jungle music.
But what's great is that the latest live action Disney movies, we saw it with Maleficent, we saw it with Cruella, and we see it here with the Jungle Cruise, is they tweak that opening castle shot with the Disney logo.
Right.
This time you actually go into the water. That's
you become submersible underwater. Yeah. The camera does.
And then you hear the backstory of they've built up a whole story around the basic Jungle Cruise idea.
So this is where I'm going to ask questions, because I know that you are much more knowledgeable in the actual ride itself. And I know like the dad jokes come directly from the ride. And that was my favorite part of this whole movie.
Yes, it was. And he was great.
The dad jokes.
The Rock would be a great skipper on the actual attraction of the Jungle Cruise. And that's what I wanted from the movie, that it has to tie in. And they actually did the biggest joke, because the skippers on the Jungle Cruise are allowed to ad lib, right? It's not the same jokes every single time.
No, now it is.
Now it is, really?
According to this, you should have watched the documentary.
Okay.
Because initially it was cut and dry. It was like a National Geographic. The guy was just saying, over here you got lounging lizards and hippopotamuses. Oh no, look out, here comes some alligators. And they brought in this guy because Disney always wanted to keep things changing. And I guess they were filming so much live action animals overseas as reference points for all these creatures. And then he started releasing them and started winning these Oscars and Emmys. So now all of a sudden he's a nature producer, but he wanted to change it up. And they brought in this guy who took one look at this ride and said, it's boring. It needs to be fun. So that's when you start bringing in the lions fighting over the zebra leg, and you start having the jokes intercut with some of the skippers. And I guess a lot of that stuff is ad lib, but now everyone has to adhere to the exact same script.
Oh,
And it's beat for beat. It's like, but you know, they interviewed quite a few of these skippers, and they're like, I have friends who used to do this, you know, and they left and then came back because it's you're still interacting with these people and you're still getting a laugh every time you say the joke. So even though it's you say it, you know, 30 times a day and it's stale, to the people on the boat, it's fresh and new. It's
the reason I think that that's disappointing is, as somebody that goes to the parks all the time, you get a different
Right.
skipper, you get a different experience, like a whole
Yeah.
different script. I guess it would still adhere to that because it depends on the delivery. So you would
yes,
still
correct. Yeah,
yeah.
you still have people who hit different beats, but yeah, it's still the same joke, but it's in the delivery.
But the one joke that was always there, didn't matter who the skipper was the backside of water.
The backside of
joke.
water.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
I would be really disappointed if they didn't have that in the movie. And
they do.
It's there. It's
It's
there.
done. And that's all we have to say.
That's all we have to say.
Do you want
So-
my one sentence review of this movie?
What
It's
is
the last. This is the last crusade with fart jokes. That's pretty much.
There is one sequence that was, it's Raiders of the Lost Ark and Marion going in and out of the baskets, right? There's that one scene
Yeah.
where they take Emily Blunt, the bad guys, they're just about to ship off, and the bad guys grab Emily Blunt, they put her in a cage, and the music's playing. It was so like that scene in Raiders where Marion's kidnapped, that it was like that's not a bad thing though, if you're gonna emulate another movie.
The problem is that they hit on all. You want to compare this to Pirates of the Caribbean? You want to compare this to Brendan Fraser's The Mummy? Like, basically, Emily Blunt's character is Rachel Weisz's character from The Mummy. Evie, the character in Mummy, was bumbling. You know, the opening sequence where she's trying to steal the arrowhead, which was nice. But it just echoed this. It just, you know, I know that the ride itself was based on the African Queen with Katharine Hepburn and
Humphrey Bogart.
Humphrey Bogart, right down to the costumes or whatever. But this Romancing a Stone with the tip for tap between the two lead characters, they pulled from all these different, like you said, Raiders, and just watered it down.
Basically, what they've set up here is that in the Amazon, there's this mythical tree that flowers when what did they call it? The crying moon comes out?
Tears of the Moon. Tears of the Moon.
So it flowers with these petals that they call the tears of the moon, which can heal any affliction.
Which is actually, this plant, this tree is on the ride. Like, they used one of the pink flowers or whatever.
Like the jaguar that you see on the ride is The Rock's pet in the movie.
Can I just say that the jaguar on the ride is more realistic than this jaguar? This CG, you want to compare this to 1999's Mummy? The Mummy FX are better than this stuff. Horrible. In the minute that the jaguar shows up, I said, this is a scam. This is not this is a fake jaguar.
Yeah, because he's biting The Rock and he's not wounding him at all. So yeah, this character of Lily Houghton is trying to get funding to go on this Amazon cruise to get the Tears of the Moon, and so she's
a woman in pants.
A woman
How dare she?
Which is, I thought that was a great running joke, because that was, nobody can believe that she's wearing pants.
Right. Take that, patriarchy.
And The Rock is actually calling her either lady or pants throughout the entire.
We got Pants and Skippy by the end of it. Those are like the running nicknames.
Yeah. She's never taken seriously, so much so that she has her brother try to plead to these people, and she's giving him a speech to read, and he actually is reading off his notes. Pause for dramatic effect.
Yeah, yeah.
Which was pretty funny as well.
Yeah.
They don't get the funding, so then they take it upon themselves to go to the Amazon to try to find the Tears of the Moon. And they cobble together whatever money that they have, and they end up with Frankie, who is The Rock, after some misunderstandings, as their skipper. And you're introduced to him as just a tour guide on the Amazon, and this is where the jokes from the ride come in. You see him on a typical day taking tourists around, and he's giving these dad jokes, and they're all
I thought this was a really great way to integrate that stuff into the ride by actually having him do a tour at the beginning of the movie. Don't bring it in throughout the movie. Get it out of the way. Establish that this is what he does for a living, and then you do your adventure on the side.
These jokes kind of bleed into the rest of the movie. When they're in
Yes.
mortal danger, when they're captured, he's still doing them. He's like, I can't shut it off.
No,
I'm
I can't.
sorry."
I can't stop him. Yeah, yeah. And listen, I am all for a good pun. I'm all for a good dad joke. So there's a couple of them. At one point, like I don't know, you said to the brother, "Hey, I used to date a girl that had the cross-eyed, but we couldn't see eye to eye or something." Like that. He says, "I was pretty sure she was seeing someone on the side," and I'm like, "That's pretty funny." And you're right. He does deliver these well. Because they just like blurt out of him. They're just like matter of fact. He's not waiting for the boom. He was yelling at the guy. Backside of water. Pick up your camera. Take a picture. So he's a bit of a shyster. He's a bit of a hustler. You see that he probably owes people money.
And he does. He owes Paul Giamatti money, who's chasing after him.
Paul Giamatti. He's doing I don't know what was going on there, but he's playing this character Nilo.
Nilo, I guess, is a competing tour guide. So that's how he gets the passage of Emily Blunt that she thinks he's Nilo at first.
So the old mistaken identity thing.
Yep. And the fact that there's undead cursed conquistadors that
We
have
get that
history with the
backstory
Tears
up
of the
front,
Moon.
right?
Yeah, we do.
Yeah.
So talk about Pirates of the Caribbean. There you go.
Straight up. And these guys were completely wasted. But again, the CG was horrible on them.
This is World War I era. So we also have a German submarine coming after the Tears of the Moon on the Amazon at the same time. Frankie and Emily Blunt and the rest of them are going after it. So you have conquistadors, you have Germans, and you have our heroes.
Prince Joachim, was that the guy?
He made a very big deal about pronouncing the name correctly. Joachim.
Oh, yeah. Well,
Yeah.
I spelled it phonetically. Joachim. And I guess we know he's a prince because he had a purple jacket on. Jesse Plemons, who's the actor. I'm looking at this guy and I'm like, he's like Benny Hill. He's like the toy maker from Chitty Chitty Bang Bang.
My wife commented that he seems to get bigger
As the movie goes.
talking about girth. Every movie that we see this guy in, and yes, as the movie goes on.
Yeah, he does not look like his IMDb profile. Let's put it that way.
He's probably most famous to me anyway, as one of the evil characters towards the end of Breaking Bad's run.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Did he have that floppy hair? That flump?
It didn't. No, I've never seen his hair more floppy than in this movie.
Okay. He was a cartoon.
The Kaiser's son, but it was pretty cool that he brings a submarine onto the
I had
Amazon.
to go. I said, all right, do we really have like submarines back then? But I guess they were out there.
And we have a character based on Trader Sam, which I thought was a no-no. They're taking Trader Sam out of the ride at this point in time.
They did mention him. Documentary was pretty new, but I guess Trader Sam's at the end of the ride, and they waved
like
to him.
a headhunter. But now the character is a woman.
But not only that, they're actors that he is once again scamming or playing. He's paying them to play these roles.
So they're not actually headhunters.
Right. They're just, yeah. So I guess they kind of skirted around that.
And spoiler alert, if you're going to see this movie, fast forward right now to King Kong, but it's revealed. It's revealed at the end that Frankie is a conquistador himself. So he's one of these guys that was cursed, but he's like the good guy of the conquistadors. And the curse is that they can never leave the river. So Frankie has taken the curse and he's parlayed that into a career for himself as a tour guide on the river. But these other guys, because they tried to escape, they stuck them in a cave, so they can't quite get
snakes coming out of them. They're
all these animals or the jungle has integrated itself into the undead corpses of these guys, and because they were stuck in a cave, the jungle can't quite pull them back all the way to the river, so they've been stuck there for centuries in this cave.
Yeah, like you mentioned before, Pirates of the Caribbean. These are the Davy Jones characters. But as opposed to being encrusted with sea creatures, they just have jungle creatures. Pirates did it much better. There's no real threat in this movie whatsoever. You know, where they're swinging on the vine and he's trying to catch his feet and he can't catch it. I got it, I don't got it. It's like, I just feel that, Michael Douglas and Kathleen Turner did this 30 years ago.
Well, The Rock himself did it in The Rundown. I think that same,
that's right.
that same setup was in The Rundown.
He's got better chemistry.
Yeah, with Shawn Michael Scott, right?
Michael Scott and that's right. Yes. And then we get the backstory of the conquistadors. It's like it suddenly becomes like a rock opera. And I found out that Metallica re-recorded their song. What is the song? Nothing Else Matters.
That's funny because my wife says this sounds like that song.
They re-recorded it for this movie.
All right. I'll have to tell her that. She was right.
So
At the end of the movie, of course, Frankie has to fight the rest of the conquistadors. So there's a conquistador fight. The pedal's going into the German's hand and Emily Blunt's hand, and there's a switcheroo. Long story short, good guys win. She gets the tears. Now, what I wasn't sure of, because this tree only flowers, first of all, it is in a secret location. She needs this arrowhead to find it. They finally find it, and there's a riddle on the arrowhead that says it's where the water turns to stone, which means the whole area where the tree is underwater. So they have to go underwater to unlock. So all the water drains.
Yeah.
All the water drains. So now
that
the
was my
tree is
question.
exposed.
Does the water level go down, or did the mountains come up?
I don't know. That's the same thing that happens in the Haunted Mansion. You go in the stretching room. Are you going up or are you going down?
Because the sub was on the floor, and it's like, well, did it come up and grab it, or did he drop down?
So now the tree is exposed, and the moon, it's just at the right time where the moon is there. So they only have a window of like, what, 5-10 minutes where this tree flowers. But when the moon goes away, the blossoms die. So wouldn't whatever they pick off the tree also die once the moon goes away?
You would think so. You're already overthinking this.
But anyway, they pick one of the blossoms.
The last blossom.
So of course Emily Blunt ends up with it. The Rock is resigned that he is going to join his conquistadors, and at the end of it, now that he's found out, but nope, it's a happy ending. She brings him back to London.
But I was gonna say, she wants this pedal because it's almost like the fountain of youth, right?
Well, she thinks that she can cure all life's ills if she has this pedal. Right.
Wasn't that the whole premise of The Medicine Man with Sean Connery? He was out in the jungles looking for the flower that was going to cure cancer. I believe that was the entire premise of that movie, and he had the long ponytail. So I did like the city reveal. Whether the water was going down or the mountains were coming up, it doesn't matter. There was a lot going on, but you didn't get a lot of time to spend looking at the nice design sets.
The pedal, breaks the curse. So that's how the Rock is able to defeat the curse of the river.
So she wasted like all of humanity can be saved by this thing. She wasted on one guy who's already 400 years old.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But it gives you a happy ending. He's able to see London.
And a potential sequel.
You can't not like The Rock, though. He is very funny, and he does a great job as the skipper. So he really brings you along on this journey. I thought it was entertaining. It's passable. It's not one of the best. It's definitely not a Pirates. I'm going to drag us into the bucket giving category now. So we can move along.
We want to get the Kong.
I'm going to give it solid 3 buckets.
Ooh, I went 2.5.
2.5?
The wife and I both looked at each other and said, this is boring, which is a bummer.
You see,
it looked like it had a lot of potential. But,
it could definitely have used at least 20 minutes cut out of it. It did not need to be
this is over 2 hours.
Yeah.
This is definitely 2 hours and 7 minutes or something like that.
But there's something to be said for a movie that you could sit and watch with your 10-year-old kid and have him laugh at the jokes and enjoy it.
Yeah, and probably want to go on the ride when they went to Disney.
Yep.
Because they do throw enough of that stuff out there that you're like, maybe you get there and you'd be disappointed that you don't have snake-infested conquistadors chasing you.
Note to Disney: add snake-infested conquistadors.
That's my idea. Damn it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So unfortunately, I did read that. We've mentioned this before, but former captains, skippers who actually worked in Disney include John Lasseter and Kevin Costner. This is cotton candy. This is empty calories to me.
Absolutely empty calories, but sometimes you want that candy snack.
It just I'll pop on The Mummy, which I find much more engaging, which I haven't seen in a while, and maybe it doesn't hold up now. I also read that Tom Hanks and Tim Allen were both in talks as far back as 2011 to star in this.
To play the skipper.
Yeah. So there you go.
Oh, imagine if you go to Disneyland and suddenly Tom Hanks is your skipper.
Tim Allen would probably have more fun with it.
Now, you saw the footage of California Adventure when Far From Home Spider-Man was in theaters and Tom Holland surprised parkgoers.
People dressed as
Spider-Man because it's a photo op. You can go get your picture taken with Spider-Man just like you can with Mickey Mouse now because there's a Marvel section of California Adventure. So Tom Holland donned the Spider-Man outfit and surprised parkgoers were, took off the mask and they're actually getting their picture taken with Peter Parker himself from the films. So it would be a missed opportunity if The Rock didn't do something like that, like actually drive, just once as a publicity stunt, just, surprise some tourists and become that skipper.
He should have
on
done
the Jungle
before the
Cruise.
movie dropped.
Build
Build up some hype.
Yeah.
Get these people back into the theater, or not only the theater, but back into the parks, because we got protocols getting kicked back into place too.
Yeah, and I'm glad because we're going.
Yeah. Move along. There's really nothing to see here. I'm sorry to say.
Let's go to our beloved concession stand. We're going to be talking too much to eat any popcorn for King Kong here. So maybe let's just get some drinks so we can clear our throats every once in a while. But let's go and let's come right back and we'll talk King Kong.
Don't be alarmed, folks. That's only the sound of our giant-sized kernels of popcorn exploding into tasty life. Just look at that, popped from the finest popcorn anywhere, then heaped into a giant-sized container, salted and seasoned just so. Nothing hits the spot like popcorn, and wouldn't some taste good right now? You'll find it at the refreshment center. Crisp, hot, delicious popcorn. Go ahead, get some.
So we are talking King Kong, 1976.
76. It seems like yesterday.
Thinking back, looking at this movie, every time I see it, and I've seen it quite a few times since the mid to late 70s, it always kicks up these memories. And it's like a time machine to watch this as well. I can't say enough about this movie. It was probably the first big movie that I really seized upon. I was too young to know what was going on when Jaws came out. So I was only 4 years old. So that completely went over my head until years later. Right. Kong was the first big blockbuster movie that was being released that I was cognizant of. And not only was I cognizant of it, I was already a budding Godzilla fan and a budding King Kong fan.
Yeah,
so I was all about this.
Yeah, I feel like I probably was entrenched in PIX or WWOR Godzilla marathons before this, because I saw this on when HBO, when you got that HBO book and there he was on the cover, and I remember watching this every freaking time it was on.
And the other thing was that the merchandise was kicked into full gear when King Kong came out. Burger King, a Burger Chef in some areas of the country had glasses. And this is before Star Wars. So this is like the first time I remember
which is
seeing
interesting. Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Movie-themed
marketing.
Movie tie-in glasses at a fast food restaurant.
They should have been like doubled down and just made like monkey burgers.
Yeah. Mego came out with a whole line of toys. I still have the plush King Kong, and it wasn't really that plush because it had a hard plastic face, but it was that famous face from the poster that was the same expression every poster. So I had that. I had the board game, which the board was the Twin Towers, and you rolled the die or you spun the wheel, and you got Kong up. So I guess the first one that got Kong to the top was the winner.
Was it like a Chutes and Ladders kind of thing?
It was kind of like a shoot, like, if you hit one thing, then you fell down. Then
I got shot by planes, go back down. Yeah.
Yep.
I had the lunchbox. I think that was
I did
in the
too.
Trading cards. I think the lunchbox and trading cards were probably the only two merchandise. Maybe I had a shirt. Jim is actually wearing it. Is that vintage?
No, this is a red bubble. It's not vintage.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
It's the iconic Kong, with 1 foot each on each of the two towers holding.
But in this painting, he has the wrecked plane in his hand.
This is a big question. No, he has the.
What is it?
I looked this up because you can't tell what this thing is.
Is it a train?
It's fuselage is the official, and like where he would have got that at the top of the Twin Towers.
Right, they never. Well, so we can get into that, which is those paintings were done by an illustrator, much like what George Lucas had Ralph McQuarrie do, which was to paint key scenes in the movie well before it was filmed, just to kind of sell the idea. Here's the look, here's the feel, here's what I want. And they did paint a scene on the Empire State Building. It was pretty late in the game before they decided to go with the trade towers.
This is a new era. They had just built the trade towers just a few years before they were completed.
Yeah, I think it was like opened in 73.
Yeah, I believe
so.
you are correct.
Yeah. But he didn't want to just remake King Kong. He didn't want to just remake the 33 Kong. That's why you don't see a lot of, I mean, you get the snake, but you don't get a lot of the other dinosaurs on.
No, you get none of the other dinosaurs. None.
No, which is fine by me. Listen,
yeah,
Kong 33, I mean, the original Kong is the original Kong, and you're never going to touch it. Anything that comes afterwards is just a pale imitation, but this was our Kong.
So now this is the problem, I think, with the Peter Jackson movie, which is a great film. It's competent. The special effects are amazing. There's so many action sequences. But because it's a straight remake of that 33 version, it's set in 33.
Yes, it is.
That, given the choice, I'm going to watch the original if I, if
No, you're right, though,
one.
because in 2005, the special effects are so impressive, and especially being Jackson, and to go back and even to add in the bug pit scene, which notoriously was cut from the original screening, the dinosaur, the whole stampede, like that's in the theater. That was an experience. That was when Kong is on top of the Empire State Building in the end of that movie. I want to go watch this movie now because I'm talking it up.
Yeah.
But it really, you could see the love for the original movie, but it is a long ass movie, and it is a full hour plus before we even get to friggin' Skull Island.
Which is fine because it's, world building, it's anticipation building, which is what you want. This is like the setup of any King Kong movie. But to your point, brilliantly, they stepped away from that original for the 76 version. They went in a completely different direction, and I think the movie excels because of that. It's not in direct competition with the 33 version.
Yeah, I agree with you. It is its own thing. It's its own and it is a bit of a capsule of its time.
Definitely. Just the fact the trade towers are there, which is, very poignant to see now. I remember the first time I went to the trade towers I was excited to go because of Kong.
Because they had that full-size model that's so prominent at the end of this movie. That's a full-figured 40-foot dead Kong laying in the plaza.
Yeah. Now, and I remember this vividly, that when I was a kid, I think it was either 77 or 78, my parents took me to the World Trade Center.
So that was like 2 years after this.
Yeah, they had a little diorama of Kong in the lobby at that time of the Trade Center.
I remember that. That's cool. Actually, it's funny because when I went there, the first thing that pops in my mind is that Miami Vice filmed an episode there.
Oh, really?
So that shows your mindset when I was like 15 years old.
Yeah.
Don Johnson was here. Screw Dwan.
Like we said before, we watched the Blu-ray, the Shout Factory Blu-ray of King Kong. Now, the great thing about this is not only is the movie cleaned up, but they've also presented the television version.
The extended televised cut.
So we've seen this and we've talked about this before. Other movies have done this. Whenever they've taken a big budget movie and shown it on television, apparently the networks like to fatten it up, to get that running time to 3 hours or maybe push it out to 2 nights.
Yeah, because think how many commercials.
How many more commercials you could fit in if it's a longer running time. So what they would do is take unused footage. I don't know who would cut it together.
That was my question to you. Does this where like the director loses that cut, or is that like a studio? Is that like a television? Like, all right, we just bought the rights. NBC just bought the rights to air this. Give us all your extra footage. We're going to cut our own version.
It has to be somebody in Paramount that has access.
Well, you like to think
footage.
Because as a director, you're like, well, I cut that out for a reason.
Yeah.
Don't put it back in.
And the fact, because I've seen the original, the theatrical, so many times, watching the television cut, because when you're putting scenes back in, obviously they don't have music. So what I'm listening to are music cues that they're replaying from other scenes that they're pasting on to these added scenes. So it's a little bit disjointed for somebody that.
And I don't think because this has been cleaned up before. Not to a Blu-ray level.
Not to Blu-ray level.
There's a little note at the beginning of the screening that tells you there are certain scenes that were cut back in that don't have, the sound quality or the picture quality of the rest of the movie.
Yeah, and you can tell a lot of the times when it's an added scene.
But
because there's more grain evident in some
well,
scenes.
yeah, like you said, it looks really nice and it looks very clean. If you pause the Blu-ray, you can see the grain is everywhere.
Right.
But that's just that's a limitation of what it was filmed on, and the fact that the thing's 50 years old. So, but the director's cut is 182 minutes compared to the theatrical cut, which is what? Because I didn't write it down.
I think it's just over 2 hours, the theatrical
So it's
cut.
an extra. It's like almost 40 minutes.
It's 45 minutes. It was what they put back in.
45 minutes.
Yeah.
So going into this, you were like, it is just that much more goodness. Do you know there was only one scene where I was like, I don't remember that. So I must have been watching the televised cut.
I think that
all
you
these
were.
years.
Yeah.
And just not aware of it because there was really nothing new in there. I was all excited going, oh, maybe they had a T-Rex. Maybe they're doing something else. No, I remember everything. The only scene I don't remember is when he blows out the power grid when he's in Manhattan.
Yeah, that was actually in the theatrical, but to a lesser extent. Because a lot of what's in this are just extended scenes of what's already in the theatrical cut.
Okay, so it's not like the original 33 Kong where they're cutting out him chewing on people because it was so traumatizing to the admittant. So it's the same scene, but I'm getting an extra 2 minutes on the back end or 2 minutes.
Correct.
On the front end.
Yeah.
Okay,
and in some instances, it's an entire sequence that they've put back in.
Okay.
So let's start here. It's Surabaya, the film opens on. And it's the Petrox Explorer, right? Which is a majestic ship.
Yeah, they're Indonesia, right? Indonesia,
yes.
Surabaya, whatever. Then, yeah.
So they're about to ship off, and you see Jeff Bridges' character come into it early on, and he's in a bar. And this is a scene that's not in the theatrical cut.
This is another. I'm sorry, I take it back. This is another scene I did not remember. And it's really quick, but it establishes how he gets on the boat.
So, in the theatrical cut, you only see him sneak on the boat. But here you see how he gets the Petrox T-shirt. He drugs a guy in the bar because he
slips him a Mickey.
He gives some cash to the bartender to slip this guy a Mickey, who then is knocked out, and then he takes his T-shirt and his credentials.
I would say his ID. And now he purposely drops that cash. Is my guess.
Yes.
Just to distract the guard.
Because obviously the picture is not going to match what he looks like on the guy's ID. So he doesn't want the guy to pay attention to the ID. He wants him to pay attention to the money that he just dropped.
Yeah. I will tell you that my wife had me stop and rewind this little scene 3 times. When you first see the dock workers, she swore that Michael Clark Duncan was on there. And I'm like 3 times. I'm like, where are you seeing this guy?
Yeah.
Although I did think that Jack O'Halloran was Jaws, was Richard Keel.
Oh,
and
really?
Then I'm like, it's Non.
It's Non.
It's Non
from Superman 2. But I didn't realize that until maybe a year ago. That it was the same guy. Yeah.
And I will say there's we both watched a lot of the behind the scenes stuff on here, but he was there, Jack O'Halloran, talking about this. And these guys are talking about a movie they filmed 35 plus years ago.
Yeah.
And the one guy's like, every time they ask him a question, he was like, "That was a long time ago, man. I don't remember."
Oh,
why are you on the panel? Why?
That was the same guy who didn't even know to put the microphone up to his mouth every time that he talked.
Yeah. But we mentioned this last week. To me, Dino De Laurentiis's name is synonymous, like between this and Orca. Like that name is cemented. And I know Conan and some of the other stuff, but this guy was just like. It was probably like the first name director.
Well, that's the thing,
producer.
Is that this guy's name is on this project before Jeff Bridges, before Jessica Lange, before the director.
De Laurentiis presents.
Yeah.
Anybody who's got 2 eyes in a row is pretty cool in my book. Although he sounds like he might have been a bit of a jerk.
I think that goes with the territory, right? Like any director or producer, that they are like cigar chomping. The producer director stereotype fits.
Yeah, you showed up on set that day and everybody's like quaking in their boots.
Now, of course, he was a known producer before this. He had done Serpico, Death Wish, 3 Days of the Condor.
But these are all larger than life. These are larger than life movies that I associate with this
Kong
guy.
was like an event. Those movies were big, but they weren't like going into Star Wars type blockbuster territory.
No, and think of the fact this did only come out a year after Jaws.
Came out a year after, like a year and a half, because this was a Christmas.
But this had to have been already in development when Jaws dropped.
Well, no, I think it was right around it. It was and it wasn't, because there's conflicting reports on who got the idea to do this and when it happened. Michael Eisner, in some cases, is credited with coming up with the idea of doing
Michael Eisner.
Michael Eisner, yeah.
What? Long before he was ever actually.
So we'll get there. Yeah,
okay,
we'll
let's get there. All right, that's news to me.
So getting back to the actual film, Jeff Bridges sneaks on board. Now he does like a circus act where he's climbing
a rope,
the anchor rope.
Yeah,
I'm like, nobody along the entire length of this ship sees him
attention.
doing this. Everybody's like working.
These guys they're not competent at all, because the boat is going away before they even untie the rope, and I'm like, that's not how it works. You really should be untie the boat
now. Yeah. So
Yes.
as they're going, so this is like a top secret mission where Charles Grodin's character is looking for oil. He works for the Petrox company.
Petrox, which is funny, because is it really meant as a tongue-in-cheek pet rocks? Like, that had to have been a thing back in the 70s, right?
Well, that was definitely a 70s thing. I never heard that was why they called the company that.
Well, I know it makes sense. Petrox of petroleum and
yeah. I was thinking it's more like Exxon. You want X,
right? Correct.
Name,
you want to,
right?
without basically saying no.
So Grodin is the Petrox employee, and he's staked everything to his name on this, that he's going to this island that they've located behind a perpetual fog bank. And, he's gotten spy satellite. He's paid off people in the government.
Like you said before, the Peter Jackson Kong that takes you an hour to build these characters and get them in motion to why they're going to Skull Island. You're literally with Jackie. He's snuck on board, and now you're learning. He's there for a reason, but it's great. And I like this little scene. Grodin just sells this whole thing.
Where he's telling the crew what his actual intentions are.
Yeah, Gabe, now I got you on board. Guess what? We're not doing what you think we're doing.
We're sailing into the history books, he tells them.
Pretty confident in this. Well, listen, if I'm wearing an ascot, I got to be pretty confident too.
Yeah, I know. And some of I think it was O'Halloran that was saying that Grodin would actually spray paint his head so his bald spot wouldn't show through.
I did hear that.
And he was joking with him one day.
But...
He was joking with him one day. Hey, Charles, I can see a hole in your head. He's like, what? Where? So yeah, he's telling him like that there's fantastic, a perpetual fog bank that doesn't move an inch in 100 years.
So 35 years later, same magic fog bank.
Same magic fog.
What if it's just like cow
bank.
flatulence?
Which is what Jack's argument is, right? That's what he's saying. Animal respiration, animal gases.
Right. He did say that, yes.
René Auberginois.
Auberginois.
Who's
no longer with us, by the way.
Who's no longer with us, but he is Fred Wilson's right-hand man. So he comes to explain the science. This could only be caused by gases. And then suddenly Jack O'Halloran speaks up. You mean there's land behind that fog? And he says, yes, you idiot.
Yeah. Like they're teaching 4-year-olds.
You just surprised me with your knowledge. Correct, Joe. Correct. So,
yeah, Bagley was a bit of a jerk. He was a pompous, but I think René Auberginois is a pompous. I think in real life he probably was that prissy character.
He probably was, which is why these actors get these parts, because they can play them.
Yeah, but this would surprise me because it is complete with commercial breaks.
Yeah, because it fades in and fades back up again it doesn't actually.
So you can only so your imagination, you can only just picture you're watching this on ABC Movie of the Week on Sunday night.
Let me quantify that. It doesn't actually show the commercials.
No, it's a black, but that those are the commercial breaks.
Yeah. Because I recorded this. I think it was the 83 showing of the NBC King Kong, which was 2 nights, and the beats. I remembered. I was expecting those commercial
commercials
breaks.
were. Yeah. That's like when you record a song on your cassette and it has like a little blip in it, and you listen to that song so many times that now when you hear it on the radio, you immediately know where that blip is coming in.
But it's an art, because every commercial break makes you want to come back to see what happens.
Yeah, they set it up. Yeah. And it's not like, because there are sometimes cartoons tend to do this, which is you cut to a commercial and then when you come back, they replay that last 20-second scene to set it up again. Like you're an idiot kid and don't remember, where
which is what they
were.
do for part 2 of the movie. They give you a recap. You must have noticed that if you watched the full version, that at the beginning of part 2 of King Kong, they not only show the credits again from the very beginning of the movie.
Is that what I had that was? I thought there was a glitch in my disc.
No,
excuse my French. I fought with it. I wrote, there's a glitch in my disc that's going back to the beginning of the movie.
So what you're watching are parts 1.
Are you kidding me? I thought my disc was broken.
No. So at the beginning of part 2, because it was a week later that you're seeing this, not only did they show you the opening credits again, they give you a recap of what happened in part 1
So you're telling me they didn't run this all in one night?
No, it was over 2 nights. It was over 2 nights.
Over a week later? It wasn't even like a Monday, Tuesday special?
Say if it was the Sunday night movie, maybe they did run it over 2 consecutive nights. But for those people that didn't see the first one, they give you a recap.
Why would you watch the second half?
Yeah.
I did not realize that at all. Because I fought with this thing. I'm like, what's going on? I went back to the beginning of the movie.
My wife actually said the same thing. Is something happening here? She said. I'm like, don't worry. It's this is part 2. That's they're
you get
showing
to
you
the
the
log
credits
scene.
again.
You get to the log scene, and immediately, so that's where part 1 ended. Is them going to the log.
Yes.
Interesting.
So then you get, the opening credits in part 2, and then like a 15-minute recap until you get to the log again. I'm glad I'm here to
I knew you were gonna set me straight in some ways. So that would have been embarrassing if I had written to Shout Factory and be like, yeah, there's something wrong with this disc. What's going on? That's like years ago. My wife and I bought a fan and we couldn't get it to work and we took it back. Every time you touch it, it turns on and off. And the guy's like, it's like a touch.
I'm sure there's a dedicated guy to take this same question at Shout Factory 10 times a day.
No, it's fine. It's
the television version you're watching. That's part 1 and part 2. It's meant to do that. Jack interrupts this briefing that Fred Wilson and Bagley is giving to the crew, and he says, it could be animal respiration.
Right.
So it could be Kong himself that is causing this fog bank. So Jack
monkey
comes in,
farts.
Then you start to hear like the strains, and you heard it in the beginning, but the John Barry music is so integral to this experience of watching this film. It's like 50% of the allure of this movie for me is John Barry's score.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
And you hear the foreboding music playing under Jeff.
Because it's the first time you're hearing Kong's name.
And he's saying that the explorers drew a crude likeness in blood in the hull of a rowboat. There's files from the Vatican that have been sealed off about this island. Then you hear the name Kong, Kong, Kong. And Wilson is having none of this. He thinks that he's a spy from another gas oil company.
But meanwhile, they couldn't have been on the high seas that long.
No, it was probably a day, right? It was probably a day.
In here. It's like, I can reveal myself now. So he's a reporter. He's a paleontologist. He's a what was his goal for getting on this boat?
Well, I think that he is an author. He's just out of college. He's got a degree. And he wants the scoop himself. He's not a reporter. He's an author. So I think that he wants to take photos and he wants this for an upcoming book. He wants to prove the existence of Kong.
Well, he took an awful lot of pictures that went nowhere. They're just sitting in an album somewhere.
He took a lot of photos of Fred Wilson himself.
Yeah. And he had that high frame rate trigger. So every shot was like 4 shots.
Yeah.
You're going to go through a roll of film in like a minute.
Which is great cinematically. Like when you take a picture.
It definitely amps up the. But this is where Jeff Bridges, because he's young. He's really young in this.
There's a lot of jokes online around King Kong that this is actually the young version of the Big Lebowski that he's playing in King Kong.
But we talk about him, how he like chews up scenes in movies later, and he just, he's just like got that screen presence, and he doesn't really have that yet here. He still commands, but he's
the leading man of the movie.
No, I know, but he's not the cartoon version of Jeff Bridges that we kind of see now.
Right.
In some of these movies.
He is great in this movie, and he's part of the time. His wardrobe is part of the time capsule aspect of this. So he's like thrown into the brig in this ship while they figure out what to do with him. And, as time goes by, they realize they take his fingerprints. They realize that he's on the up and up. He's not a spy from an oil company. So he's walking on the deck with other guys, and he sees a raft, a life raft floating in the distance. So he's the one that actually spots Dwan, who we're introduced
Dwan.
to. And again, that lush music comes up. You see the hand over the edge of the inflatable raft as it floats. Beautiful cinematography during these opening shots on the water. They get close enough to the raft to haul her in, and of course, it's Jessica Lange in the slinky, wet, soaked black dress as they carry her up. Non himself takes her in his arms and carries.
Yes, he
him
actually
up.
pulled a back muscle doing that.
And they showed the scene during that interview where he's talking about that. You can see him limping as he's going up the stairs.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the little stairs at the side of the boat is barely big enough for a man to walk through, and he's carrying this woman.
Yeah,
you know, and he's probably trying not to bump her head against
and he's trying desperately not to drop her, and then
or fall backwards and take out the 5 guys behind him. I will say, just in case anybody was concerned, no bras were harmed in the making of this movie because there are none to be had
or utilized. So, of course, we're introduced to Jessica Lange, who wakes up.
And this is her cinematic debut.
Yeah, the credits.
This is a hell of a
introducing
entrance.
Jessica Lange, and who knew from this, because she's playing like a bubbly airhead.
She's very vapid in this.
Yeah,
and it's probably looking back and knowing what she has accomplished now, she probably is a little bit embarrassed by this, but this is the character.
Knowing what she's accomplished now, you realize how much she is acting here.
She just didn't have the chops she had.
She's probably acting well. I'm sure the script didn't give her anything to do but to scream and make funny things, say funny things to Kong.
And I got the impression, she talks about the fact that she was on a boat that blew up. She was up on the deck because everyone else was down below watching Deep Throat, which is
a porno movie.
The
most famous porno movie I think ever made.
Which
right?
I've never seen, by the way.
No,
I can honestly say I've never seen it. But is this implied that she's going to be a porn actress?
Some probably second, third-rate movie company or director has taken her on.
He told me I was going to be in pictures
in Hong Kong, right?
Yeah,
which is not
that sounds
Hollywood.
Pretty dubious. Yeah. No, let's ship you overseas.
So she tells the story, and of course she falls for Jack immediately. And then she explains that her name is actually Dawn. She switched 2 letters to make it more memorable. So it's Dwan.
Dwan, genius. Good thing she didn't switch the other letters.
So then we get that montage again with the romantic music playing of her on the ship and establishing a relationship with Jack. And there's another great deleted scene that's in the TV movie where the crewmate Garcia is being held by his ankles so he can peep on Dwan coming out of the shower.
Yeah, you got a ship full of seamen here, and you got a woman on board.
And then Jack, sees this, and he tickles the guy holding him, and he falls into the ocean. And then he does throw him a life preserver.
There you go.
Poor Garcia. I'm lucky that he didn't get drawn into the rotors in the back of the ship.
Yeah, that went awry really quick.
Extreme punishment for what he did.
Garcia, you peeping Tom, you.
Then we finally get to the perpetual fog bank. And now Jack has become the expedition's official photographer. So he's there to take all the pictures once Fred Wilson steps on land. And then Dwan insists on coming aboard. They were going to keep her on the boat, but nope, she wants to see what's going on. And they pierce through the fog, which is, again, if you're the first time seeing this, I'm sure it's a very suspenseful scene, that it's lost on me because I've seen it so many times. And these scenes, the scenes on the beach, the scenes in the water going through the fog, these are all extended as well. These go on much longer than what's in the theatrical
this was all
cut.
filmed in Hawaii, by the way. This
yes,
beach,
yes.
That alcove with the
once they get to that beach, that natural alcove, which is that that cut through the rock there.
All right.
Beautiful. The whole thing is beautiful. And then as they're exploring the island, those huge, those reveals, those overhead shots.
Yeah, that's I think the Nepali coast.
The beauty, the vivid green, the colors on the Blu-ray in these scenes especially, is just amazing. And then of course they think the island is uninhabited. They get, and what is great, they get to the wall. Wilson is schooling Jack. First of all, first point, this island is uninhabited. Right. Second point, this wall is an ancient ruin. And then
been here longer than the pyramids, right? Something like that.
And then Jeff's line, he's like, and that's an uninhabited German bar with a mechanical band.
With a mechanical band, yeah. Yep. But even like when Wilson's getting off the boat, you know, and he's a very Patton-like as he's, you know, touching down on the beach.
And he says, Jack, I'm getting off the boat.
Right.
So-
and it's pretty funny because he's not very suave about it. But
no.
And this wall is a practical built set.
Amazing.
It is
Amazing.
absolutely amazing.
This
is almost as impressive as Kong is.
The base of the wall still exists on set.
Are you kidding me?
Not the wall itself, the base of the wall. So like the foundation.
So when I go to Nepal, I can actually, because there's a tour, you can do the whole Jurassic.
No. This the wall wasn't in Hawaii itself. That was a matte painting.
I thought you were going to tell me I could go and see the.
No, they did the wall on set.
So
yeah.
The whole. I will tell you, when they get there and they see the natives, the lead guy with the Kong mask, like that guy always freaked me out. Like literally freaked me out. Like I think he's scarier, like human size, than if I saw the giant Kong.
Definitely, and he's very lustful as well in his dancing.
Yeah, what's going on here, by the way? Because how often do they actually sacrifice one of these women? Is this like a daily thing? Like Kong's got to eat a lot, right?
I know, because Kong eats them because he's not keeping them all. You don't see any of these
why
other
is
women.
he suddenly taking? Because they're putting the straw on the hair to make it look like they're blonde. So he definitely has a type. He prefers a type.
Or maybe Kong is like playing around on these girls with Jessica Lange. He's got them all like in a first wives club in some cave somewhere.
Well,
they're
like, should have someone to talk to.
And they're looking at their watches. Where is he? He's not home yet.
But I would think that they would run out of women
eventually
at a certain point.
Or is it like every generation? You know,
I don't
how old is Kong?
Right, but just the fact that they just happened to be there when they were sacrificing somebody.
So now
Kong.
here's the other big question. I even had it when I was a kid. How do they get in the wall and Kong can't?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, no.
Why doesn't Kong go around?
He could just, it's got to go. My guess is it's got to, because they're on the beach. So the wall has got to extend end to end. But you're right. He could just go into the water and come around. He could easily climb this thing.
Yeah.
Easily. So he's like, I got a good thing going. They got their side. He's got the whole freaking island to himself. Although every time they shot the little radar, he was in the exact same spot.
Yeah.
I'm like, is that really how radar works? Just put it on monkey setting. Right. There he is. I see him. Yep. There he is.
Boop.
Yeah.
Boop.
Yeah.
Oh, he moved 2 feet.
He's
now
coming.
He's coming
right at you.
anymore.
No, he's not. He hasn't moved.
He's
right
in
there.
He's in the dead center of the island.
And I love the fact that this island is completely shrouded in fog. It was pretty sunny there.
Yeah. Unless it's like the eye of a hurricane, where the fog isn't like on top of the island. It's only.
Well, I mean, I guess it
surrounding
makes sense because later when you kind of see where he resides or whatever, it is volcanic looking. I mean, it could just be. You saw the oil, the pools. I don't know. Yeah, it's a good device.
So yeah, as the crew that have gone on shore are spying on this religious ceremony that's happening behind the wall with the natives, they see these bubbling pits of black liquid, and this is what Fred is assuming is the oil. This is what they're there for. He's all excited, and then suddenly the head priest, who Jeff just alluded to, in the monkey mask, sees them. And, so he's, in his native tongue, stop the music, stop the presses. There's somebody.
I'm glad
up there.
they did not subtitle this, by the way.
Yeah.
It would have taken away because you're kind of taken aback. I mean, these guys are dressed in like burlap bags and they look like ghosts.
Yeah.
And they're dancing around. This poor girl's drugged out of her mind.
And so they go up to meet, where Fred and the rest of the gang are hiding. They see Jessica Lange and immediately the conversation.
Yeah.
And Jeff is like the interpreter. Jeff Bridges is the interpreter. He's like, can you tell what they're saying? Only the tone, but I can specifically say what he's saying from the tone.
Right.
He's like,
he offers 6 of these women for that's a deal. You barely know this woman. She floated on a boat. You got a lot of horny guys waiting back on that ship. 6 women for one. Not a bad deal. No,
Wilson's not having it. He himself says no.
Yeah. That's where he puts his foot down. He lets her come onto the island, but sacrificing her to the monkey gods over there.
The natives don't like this answer, so they're about to take her by force, but guns in the air, on the air only. They make their escape. It's that night. Jack's about to go rogue and go on the beach himself to get some night shots. And Jessica's like, no, I don't think it's safe for you tonight, especially with the moon the way it is, because she's a nutty astrological follower, right?
She's all about, everyone's an Aries, by the way.
Yeah, because of the size of their ears.
That's not the first thing I look at a Kong.
So she she tempts him away, at least temporarily, from going on his night trips because she's going to meet him back in her cabin, right? So
There's not
they're
much
about
else to do on that ship. So
no,
you might
they're
as
about
well.
to set a romantic interlude. So Jeff goes away. He says, "I'll meet you in your cabin in 10 minutes." So she stays there down by the water because she's dangling her feet in the water at night or whatever.
It's a plot
she's
device. She has to be
Yeah.
as convenient as possible for these natives to get in there and grab
her. So
her.
the natives come up in the rowboat, they grab her. So the movie hasn't really diverged so far that much from the 33 version.
No.
The same thing really kind of happens there.
Same native drops a necklace.
Yep. So
Dude,
they
I just
take
gave
her.
that to you.
Now, this scene where she wakes up and she's there in the traditional garb, this scene goes on a lot longer than the theatrical version.
And it looks like they saved all the best jewelry for her. But before we get there, Jack has this interaction with Wilson in the command center. And for the theatrical, it's different because he swears and they cut it.
Of course, because it's on TV.
Yeah, I know. But but you also don't get the booby shot in this version either.
Well, you can't show that on NBC, right?
But he does refer to Wilson as an asshole because he says you wouldn't be a-hole enough to destroy a unique new species of animal, and Fred's like, bet me. So yeah, I think there was two scenes like that where I remember. I think at one point Jack says something and they just, you see him mouth it, but see him
mouth it, but you don't actually hear it.
Yeah. But this scene, because I think this is a really strong scene because it shows a lot about Wilson's character. Yeah, just some guy gonna drop out in a monkey suit and he'll get laid tonight. We're good to go.
That is hilarious. That is a hilarious line. He's like a priest gets dressed up like an ape and gets laid. That's all that's gonna happen. Yeah.
And Jack's like, dude.
And Jack's like,
you saw the wall. What do you think's on the other side of this thing?
And what did he say? The kids would burn every Petrox from Maine to California. I think he says. Yeah. I'm like, I don't know if the kids care that much about Petrox, but okay. So
it was the 70s.
So poor Jessica, poor Dwan is drugged, out of her mind, and they're doing the dance, and everybody's oiled up, and so they're about to open the gates to put her on the altar, and they're blowing their big cornucopia horns, calling Kong. That's what the horns are for. Like, we're ready. Come on, come and get it.
Yeah. Dinner bell.
This is the first time I've noticed this little detail. She's got like a big palm leaf tied around one of her arms.
It comes and goes.
And I never noticed that before.
It comes and goes because she loses the leaves, but she still has the arm cuff.
Yeah.
And there are scenes when she's in his hands that come and go. And there's a couple times where all of a sudden it's not there and whatnot. But again, maybe those are little scenes that were cut from the theatrical that were just cut back in. I don't know. But I love the fact that she was basically tethered by Christmas garland. She could have escaped at any moment. It wasn't like they stapled her down or put
just lean back.
On her.
Yeah, just lean back and those things would snap.
But they did drug her. She's drugged.
Yes, she's drugged, and then we get the reveal of Kong. And this is such a great visual of the trees falling down from Kong's point of view.
And then you get the eye shot where you just see his eyes, because up until this point, like, I don't remember the trailers. I don't remember them really like revealing too much, but we saw all the marketing stuff. You talked about the poster with him standing on the World Trade Center, and that artist Berkeley, I think was his name, and he did. There's a couple. They're on the lunch boxes and some of that other stuff where he's breaking through the wall, and he's just this ferocious looking monster. Big barrel chested. And so you, as a kid, when like you said, the music is swelling, Kong, they're banging their drums. You got everything going on. And you get the shot of his eyes coming through the foliage and whatnot. And it's such a great reveal. I mean, there are moments in this movie where it is very 1976. She's running on a green screen or a blue screen back then, because this is a man in a suit, but this is a man in a suit unlike anything we have seen. Godzilla, his feet were flopping when he was crushing tanks or whatever. You could tell. And this guy is so articulated. And we're going to talk about Rick Baker on the back end, because this movie would not be.
No, not at all. And like you said, when the big reveal happens and Kong beats his chest, when you finally see him,
that roar is unlike anything. It is so unique. It's not a gorilla roar. It's not a Godzilla roar.
Yeah, they took that roar from The Lost World, 1960s, The Lost World.
I
So if
love
you
that.
watch
I love
that movie,
little, I love that little trivia. That's cool.
yeah. So yes, you know that you're looking at a guy in even as a kid, you know you're looking at a guy in a suit. But as you said, it was like no other monster movie, guy in a suit movie
Yeah.
yet to this point.
Yeah.
You're completely sold on it regardless. And
Yeah.
it is just the tip of the iceberg from here because it's really two different movies, like The Island and New York. And it's two completely different feels, tones, what have you. And King Kong needs to be that.
And the other thing too is that I mentioned Godzilla. You know, you watch those old Godzilla movies. There's really like kind of like a one point of view. You know, the early Godzilla movies, you never got the guy on the ground perspective. Yeah, maybe you'd see him up over a hill or whatever, but it was really like middle of the road. You know, here they are fighting and they're knocking over buildings or whatever. But it's like you're on a helicopter, you know, at his chest level. This is you're getting her perspective. She's on the ground looking up at this thing.
Yeah.
You know, and he's 40 foot tall, and it doesn't sound that big, but it's a 40-foot tall monkey. Well,
and then
monkey.
Of course,
I hate the fact they kept calling him a monkey. By the way.
Right.
That just drives me nuts.
Well, that was mostly Wilson calling him the monkey. So you hate Wilson anyway. So that's probably meant to aggravate you. But of course, they're intercutting the shots of Rick Baker in the suit with the big hand, as they call it. So you're getting that perspective. So you're realizing what she is compared to Kong, even without showing. Yeah,
you get a lot of that. Him bringing her to him.
Yeah.
And it's not seamless because you can tear it apart, but it works.
But I'll tell you what is seamless. The fluidity of motion of those hands is almost like balletic. I love the movement of those hands, especially when it's like it's dipping her into the waterfall and like picking her up again.
Because I think on one of the specials, the guy who actually carved those, who sculpted those hands, and they have the one thing that was really interesting was that they have these bolts in place that will only let it close its hands so far. So it'll never, you know, because it's robotics. It's hydraulics, you know, back in the day. And they talk about the fact that these things are leaking hydraulic fuel everywhere. You know, it's covered in latex, all that fur. It was like hand stitched into this thing. But you're right. It gives the scale. And I guess a couple times she did, you know, was a little precarious where this thing might have squeezed her a little too hard. Imagine being the guy on set that day that's controlling the hand that's taking her clothes off. Like,
I gotta
do this.
That guy's probably got the same facial expression that Kong did.
Yeah, Kong was a perv, man. Like I said, he had a type. I guess he's a breast guy. All right.
I guess
What's he gonna do with that?
The crew shows up because Jack sees the necklace on the deck that the natives have left behind.
Yeah.
So, or the bracelet or whatever it is. So they show up and, you know, guns ablaze, the flares are going off. So all the natives disperse. You don't see them again for the rest of the movie until Kong is in the hole.
They're hiding.
Yeah.
They're like, crap. That didn't go well.
So they open the gate what's funny is it takes 3 of them to move the bolt back when it took like 20 guys, the natives, to move that bolt back.
Did they actually close the gate behind them?
They open up the gate. The altar's empty. They run out. Fred falls into the footprint.
Yeah.
So he's like, footprint. I fell into a hole. That's not a hole. What do you mean? Look at me.
And immediately like, that's a 6'4" footprint. Yes. It's like, damn, you got some serious.
And then Bridges says, who do you think went through there? Some guy in an ape suit? And you're just
that was kind of funny. That was cool. But I think that's tongue in cheek a little bit because they never intended for this to be a man in a suit.
No, this is incredible to me.
This is unbelievable. This right here makes me mad.
De Laurentiis was dead set on using, I guess he was his friend, Carlo Rambaldi, who promised De Laurentiis that he could make a 40-foot robot that could do everything that Kong needed to do.
And this is how they sold this movie. As it's a robot.
And nobody believed it could be done except for Dino. Dino had faith in this guy, and it never happened.
Dino was misplaced his faith.
So it wasn't a self-referential joke in the beginning. It probably
they were kind of like, it's not a man in a suit. That's a real robot.
But it really is.
Oh,
it really is.
This would have been a stinker if they followed through with that.
Imagine if that that stiff robot that you do see for like 2 seconds later on is in the
Yeah,
whole
I think
movie.
he gets 6 scenes, and even as a kid, you're like, that looks like crap.
Yeah.
Yeah. Rick
don't
Baker.
get me wrong. If I saw that thing in person, I probably wouldn't want to leave it. I would want to live at this thing's feet. But in the movie,
it did tour as some circus thing for a while. Because after you build it, you got to do something with it. But Rick Baker saved this movie. And, you know, he talks and he's very self-deprecating in certain regards when he's like, listen, I was a stupid 25-year-old kid.
Yeah.
You know, I can do it better. I can do it bigger. I can do it my way. You know, so he just kept defying everything that they literally tasked him with doing something and he did the complete opposite.
I remember reading something in researching this, that when he was told that Rambaldi was going to attempt to make a 40-foot robot that could do everything, he was stupefied. He was like, what? So, yeah, getting back into the movie, they go after Dwan. There's a little search party that goes after her that's led by Carnahan, who's one of the head hands on the ship. He's grilling Jeff Bridges at one point. So you said that the ape was going to marry her. What do you mean he's going to marry her? What is he going to do with her?
That's what I said. And yeah, you're right. That lusting look that he has.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was looking to consummate, that's for sure.
And so, you know, then we cut to the next morning where we have the first real interactions between Dwan and Kong, where she's telling him that he's an Aries because of the shape of his ears. That's when she's hitting his lips, which just looks like, you know, latex rubber.
Yeah.
Shaking back and forth.
But I would think that that's exactly what a monkey's muzzle would do.
Yeah, and these are the scenes where you're talking about where they're blue screening the big hand holding Jessica Lange.
Yeah,
and
in front of the face.
In front of the Rick Baker's face in the suit.
Now, they did build a life-size head, or no? I know they did that for the 33 Kong.
They have the big Kong. So they used that big Kong, which was 40 feet tall. So they had a life-size head, but the head doesn't match.
It doesn't look at all like
the suit,
the Rick Baker suit.
No. And Baker was actually adamant that the sculpt, and of course you think this was a no-brainer. Why would he have to even bring this up? The sculpt for the 40-foot needed to be the same sculpt as what he was doing for the suit. And they're like, what are you talking about? That doesn't need to be the same.
Idiots. Right. She's not getting what she wants out of him, so she calls him a chauvinist pig and says, why don't you just eat me? And that's when she starts banging on his
like, eat me, choke on me. She's
choke on this.
Yep, a chauvinist pig ape, she calls him. And this is, again, there's a swear that I don't forget what it was that they cut out in the TV version. But this is where all that campy dialogue starts coming in, where she's calling him, an Aries, and she's bringing all these 70s references into this thing. Yeah. So this is where the movie really diverges from the original. We're in a different world now. Kong puts her down. She tries to escape and she falls in the mud. And this is where you get the roar, and the big hand comes down and smashes next to her on the ground.
The rocks goes flying.
Yeah. And I love the sound effects of just him walking.
Yeah.
Yep.
But again, it's all on the ground shots. So you're getting a point of view of him stomping. You're getting that foreground foot.
Yeah.
Right in your face.
Yeah.
Which sells the whole thing.
She's running away from him at this point, and it's so obviously blue screen, but there's a charm in that. There's a charm in that.
Yeah, no, I mean, like I said, we watch Godzilla movies and we love them. We know they're a guy in a rubber suit, goofy. You get to the snake scene. I think the only time the snake moves is when he grabs it. I don't really think it.
Yeah, he's moving it. He's the one moving it.
Right. It's like, oh no, it's grabbing me. He's wrapping it around himself.
And of course, this also allows Charles Grodin for a few more mustache twirling evil scenes where he's on the radio with the search party and he's making them stay there to do their charges or whatever to search for oil. And Jeff Bridges is like, there's some girl frightened out of her mind by some turned on ape, and you're telling us to do charges? Jack, there's a national energy crisis. It's time we rise above our own petty interests. And
So in other words, screw the girl. You should have taken the deal with the 6 women. Right? That he wouldn't say this. She's gone now.
To your point before, the audience is hating this guy. So he's completely the villain. It's not Kong, it's Wilson.
Yes. Well, yeah.
Definitely not Kong. Kong is really the leading man. It's not Jeff Bridges in this film. He is the romantic interest for Dwan.
He's the misunderstood. He's the misunderstood,
But Dwan is muddy now. He's got to clean her off. So now we get this incredible waterfall scene.
My wife is like, is he blow drying her? I said, listen, it's not often you get a blowjob from a monkey. So
my wife is telling me his breath must smell so bad.
what do you think it smells like? I did want to turn into a drinking game every time she mouth breathed or he flipped his hair back.
She's seeming to enjoy that blow dry quite a bit.
When in Rome.
Baker did not enjoy working with Rambaldi. He was forced to work with Rambaldi, so Dino brought them both together.
He had nothing nice to say about this man.
But the one thing he admits is that he was amazed by the mechanical facial expressions that Kong was able to give because of Rambaldi's mechanics in the mask.
The suit, yeah.
And this waterfall scene is a prime example. The cheeks,
yeah, blowing out. That's all practical. Yeah, you're right.
It's all practical. And for 1976, you don't see that in a movie today. That level of detail.
You sure don't see it in Jungle Cruise. That's for sure.
No, you don't.
CG Jaguar.
About the same time, Bagley's character is realizing that the oil, quote unquote, on this island is not oil at all, yet it's got about 10,000 years before it's going to be worth
He's
anything.
A little too giddy about this too, by the way.
And the scene where he's on the ship looking through the microscope and laughing hysterically, that's not in the theatrical cut. That's added to this.
And then he goes running on the boat and he's got to go all the way to shore. You can't just call it in. He's got to go all the way to the shore just so we can
get me a boat right now, now, as he's laughing.
Give me a drink. Guess what I got to tell you?
Remember there's a line that I really missed. It's in the theatrical cut when he goes on shore. He says, "You could get more mileage out of mule piss than this."
I don't remember that.
And that line is cut from the TV version.
Of course it is.
And he's like, "I hate to kick a man when he's dead, but you shouldn't have radioed in that you're bringing in the big one." He's like
what? Big one? That's all it takes. They did build that trap in record time.
Yes, they did. And somehow they got those bulldozers across all that terrain to the wall.
Well, not only that, do research vessels normally carry chlorophyll on board? Where do they get this?
That's where the plane drop was. You see,
I don't remember seeing. I saw that in one of the deleted or whatever when I was watching the behind the scenes and they were doing a little montage. I don't remember seeing that in the actual movie.
That plane drop. It was 10 minutes of them dropping the barrels from the plane, that they go to get in the water.
So you're calling in. You're like, I need 2,000 gallons of chlorophyll.
We got it. Yeah.
Estimated monkey time.
So this brings us right up to the log scene where our intrepid rescue party goes across the log. And why do they all feel the need to tightrope walk across this thing? I'd be on my hands and knees going. Yeah.
The one thing I did notice on the logs, there are little painted squares.
Oh, really?
And I guess maybe as a kid, I thought it was just native drawings. Maybe it was a little, like a stop, don't go over. But from what I understand, those are markers for the actors that just made it onto screen.
Okay.
So, but this is the one iconic scene from the original Kong that you almost cannot not have.
Right. So Jack makes it across, no problem. He's like, "It's solid as a rock. Come on, everybody's on the log," and all of a sudden, Kong is there.
Yep.
And
he's hide behind the bushes waiting for him.
He's waiting for the most opportune moment where he's got them all at one shot. So, of course, he grabs the log and he's rolling it until they all fall off. And they're all trying to still stand up on the log, trying to, trying to balance themselves.
Yeah, just friggin', one by one, falling off.
And this is where we lose Nan at this point.
Yep.
And the one guy, Bone, is the character's name. For all you James Bond fans out there, I didn't realize this until a recent viewing either. This is Teehee from Live and Let Die. Is Bone. He's one of the Bond villains. Bone is the only one that survives. He jumps off on the far side of the log, and Jack is the only one that's on the Kong side of the log. So Bone makes his way back eventually to the wall while Jack continues on. Now, this I had a problem with, and I always had a problem with this scene because Jack puts himself in a little crevice on the cliff face. Kong is trying to get him, and you see Rick Baker's hand go all the way in this thing. I'm like, oh, he's dead. He would have got him.
Right, yeah, no. But when the pullback and it's a giant robotic hand, it's just kind of slapping there.
He can't quite get his hand all the way in. So this is where part 1 ends and part 2 begins at the log scene. Once Fred Wilson has made his mind up that he's taking Kong, then the chloroform comes in, then the bulldozers come in. They all go to the wall. They're digging out a big trench to capture Kong. And this is where they're putting the chloroform. And he's kind of giving a little bit of his, he's explaining to somebody what his purpose is here. And he's like, look at Exxon. We'll put a tiger in your tank. They did zillions just to peep a tiger.
What do you think's going to happen when we bring this thing home?
Yeah. So that's what he wants. He wants
it's all about marketing.
He wants them to use him as an ad campaign.
Yeah. Can you just take it a picture?
And he's right. That would be a fabulous ad campaign.
Yeah.
So again, this is where we get in the theatrical cut, the booby shot and the snake scene, where now Jack is the only one left of the search party. And he goes on, I guess this is Kong's like home, his hideout.
This is a really nice set piece too, because it, you see full Kong running around. He's 40 foot tall, but it's like this volcanic kind of top of a volcano. You got the spires that look like the World Trade Center, very volcanic-y. So
this is where he, starts to undress Dwan. Kong lets her down before the snake comes, and then the snake shows up and he's got to protect her. Yeah. And this is where, so in the beginning, when the snake is slithering towards, it is moving on its own. But then when it starts to wrap around Kong, he's completely controlling the movement of the snake. And this goes on for a much longer time than in the theatrical cut as well, where you see him shots over and over again of him rolling on the ground with the snake wrapped around him. And then Jack, to save her modesty, gives Dwan the shirt off of his back.
Literally, yeah. Off they go.
And Kong manages to break the jaw of the snake, which is also more graphic in the theatrical cut. You actually see the jaw separate in the theatrical cut, which is cut.
Which is a nice callback to the original, because he breaks the T-Rex's jaw as well in
yes,
that.
Yes, he does.
And he kind of like flaps it.
Then we get the chase. They get to the precipice again when Jack is with Dwan. And this time they just jump. So I'm like, are those guys alive if they landed in the water? If you can just jump in and land in the water? So Kong is all upset because they've jumped, but he's following them. He must be following them down the river. They finally make it. And Bridges really sells it. He's like, looks exhausted because he's carrying her by this. He's like, open the gate. And we've already
how heavy this woman is?
So they're setting up the chloroform. They've got the pit all ready to go. They actually have the bolt in place where they let Jeff and Dwan in. Right. But I guess they want the element of surprise. They don't want Kong to come in and like see.
I don't know. Listen, if he hasn't broken through this thing in however many years that he's trapped on the other side, what makes him think that he's suddenly going to come through? That he's so obsessed with this woman that he's going to do anything. What if he just went out, like you said? What if he just climbed over it?
Right, but he's like,
the door open, let him come right through. He takes 2 steps, he falls in a hole.
Pull the bolt back halfway just in case. And he's like, you think that monkey can break through that door? And Bone is like, There's a great scene though as Kong is approaching the gate where he's eye to eye with Grodin.
Wilson. Yeah.
Yep. And he's trying to grab
because this is the first time he's seeing this thing.
Yeah.
And it is, and he's grabbing up the top and he's ripping up the top of the Fred can't get down fast enough. He's probably rethinking some of his life choices right about now.
But this is a fabulous sequence where you just get a sense of the power of Kong, where he's pounding on the wall.
It goes on forever. He's just tearing at this door, and they're just standing there. They're like, what happens if this plan doesn't work?
Or what happens if the entire wall falls over and on top
crushes
of
them all, crushes them all.
Yeah. So their plan does work. He breaks through the gate in spectacular fashion, slow-mo coming through the gate, and he's like triumphantly roaring, but then the next second he falls right into the hole
this is another nice scene where you got the fog, the chloroform fog is in, and you just see the hand rise up and then go back down, and then it kind of slow, and it comes up again, and then it goes down. Yeah. And all these poor natives are now coming out of hiding. Like you said, we haven't seen them since they shot in the air and chased them away. Yeah. It's like, dude, these white devils just stole your god, and you're just going to let it happen.
Because I was thinking, as they're all approaching, and you see this little group from the ship there, I'm like, just kill them right now. Kill them all.
Yeah. Or are they happy that they don't have to subjugate themselves?
That's what Wilson thinks. Wilson's like, we did them a favor.
They're
He's
like the
"No."
little munchkins. They start ding 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 dong, the Kong is dead. Ding, ding, ding. I don't know, but yeah, that's but I think it was Jack later who said, "Listen, these guys are gonna be a bunch of drunks in a year because they don't have anything to do now."
I was wondering how they got the bulldozer to the wall. How did they get Kong to
Kong,
the
yeah,
ship?
that is completely left up to your imagination.
Yeah.
And the one thing I did not realize, it's a completely different ship.
Yeah, they need a bigger ship.
I never picked up on it. All the times I've watched this movie, I've never picked up on the fact that it's a completely different ship. It's like a full-on oil tanker.
Yep.
With big giant cargo holds. What's he gonna do with those little bananas they're dumping in there? By the way,
I know it's like eating nerds to us, like
not
tiny little
even
candies. Yeah,
that's what seems a waste.
And they can't give him a pillow in there.
Something I know. Throw some hay, some leaves, something. What if he has to go to the bathroom?
They're all standing on deck, so they've got Kong in the hold in this big oil tanker to bring him back to America. And Dwan and Wilson and Jack are on deck, ruminating about what's happened. Dwan's like, "Oh, I feel so bad for him. We stole him off that beautiful island." And Wilson is like, "It's an animal, a beast that tried to rape you." And "Oh no, that's not true. He risked his life. Tried to rape you, honey." Yeah. And
dude had the right idea. What, to rape me? What are you talking about?
Jeff at one point says the ape had the right idea. I'm like, what are you talking about?
Right. What?
Jack is about to get lucky again because he was interrupted the first time by the natives when they stole Dwan. So this time they're on deck and they're making out in the same spot where they were talking to Wilson. Like, what do they not move from this one particular point on the deck?
Yeah.
So it's nighttime. And as they're making out, the scarf blows off in the wind and makes it into Kong's chamber, goes through the grate, floats down. He smells it and goes nuts. Those poor crew members, like, what do you mean my quarters are right next to Kong? Why am I getting this spot?
Right. That guy's sleeping.
Yeah.
No, not for long.
Nope. So Kong is going nuts. And apparently, like, the workings of the ship are on the other side of the wall from Kong. So he's like screwing everything up as he's pounding on the walls. You hear a voice overhead saying, "Flood the tank. He's going to sink the ship. Flood the tank." Where's Wilson when this is going on?
We put all of this effort into getting this damn thing into, and it's like, this is not going to work. Let's just sacrifice ourselves and the monkey.
So this is where Dwan climbs out on the grate.
The grate,
above where he is. He tries to leap up to get to her, and she falls. And this is one of the worst shots in the movie where she falls into his hand. It's like somebody gingerly, yeah. But this is a weird scene because he's like content with just seeing her. Then he lets her go.
Seeing her, yeah. He's like, "Oh, okay, you're still here with me."
Yeah.
Like he thinks he's on a cruise ship now. Where's the all-you-can-eat buffet?
She calms him down. He lets her go, but watches her as she goes. Yeah. And this is longer too. You see her go up every rung of that.
Yeah, no, this does take a long time.
Yeah.
It's like, all right, honey, we're gonna lower you down into this thing, and you're gonna actually, because you would imagine it's probably just a built set for the to scale of Baker in the suit. But she's climbing these ladders. It's like, I'm on the 3rd floor. Now I'm making the 4th floor.
Yeah.
All right, we get it. Yeah.
So then he falls asleep. He's sated, right? He's seen his paramour, so he falls back asleep. And then boom, the next scene is fireworks, New York City, and you're there in New York.
Yeah, how much time do you think has passed? Not much, right?
Probably not. Like a couple of weeks, maybe.
Yeah. Yeah, so is this thing, like, was he just on the boat the whole time?
I guess, or if they had him backstage. I think what this is supposed to be is Shea Stadium.
Yeah, I got that. Yeah, because when you start getting into it, if you plot out where he escapes with this spectacle and the fact that the 7 train is the only above ground subway in Manhattan, goes into Manhattan. So that's Queens and Astoria. And
it's the Queensboro Bridge that they go over.
He goes over, yeah, and the fact that he goes by the St. Patrick's Cathedral, he goes down past, so you can kind of plot it out that he's making his way downtown.
So at least they were trying to be realistic with his movements. Yeah.
Right.
Then we get the scene backstage with Dwan and Wilson, and Jack comes and he's like, "I'm quitting," because he was going to be part of this show as well. So
I think he signed a contract or something, right? Yeah.
So he was going to be acting.
And he's like, "Yeah, no, I'm not doing this."
Yep. Oh, and by the way, I donated my advance in your name to the fund to send Kong back home. And then he's like to Dwan, he's like, "Come on, come with me right now." And Wilson, of course, in another mustache twirling moment, you'll never get a booking in your life. Go ahead, go with him. You'll never work
Yeah.
again.
Jerk.
And he's
There's
gone.
the stadium filled with hundreds of people, not thousands.
Invited guests, right? So this is another scene where it's like the disco music is playing. It really
This really cements in its
But amazing nonetheless. That whole again that that music and the gas tank is coming. That big fake gas tank.
Behold
the power.
He never calls him the eighth wonder of the world, though.
No, he doesn't.
Does he? No.
Hail the power of Kong and Petrox. He's
I'm surprised they didn't put a logo right on the damn monkey. Just burn it right into his
right
skin.
there. You see Kong in the cage with a crown on his head, and this is where the first time you see that big full-size 40-foot robot.
Which is it's impressive when you see the pullback shot of the people in the stands. You see the whole fake, Kong wall with the logo. The helicopters are flying around. It doesn't, it's all right there on stage.
Yeah.
The minute it moves, well, like you said before, it does not look like the Rick Baker Kong costume.
No, it does not. It looks more like, do you know that guy, Brother Theodore? That you ever see him? It looks like that the face of this thing looks like Brother Theodore. The same haircut.
That is, so I'm missing the reference.
Google it.
Okay, Brother Theodore.
If they had only kept it at that one split second reveal when the gas pump rises and you maybe didn't get enough time to really focus in on it, that would have been cool, and cut everything else out. Because when he finally breaks through the cage,
the wrist movement,
and drops those two pieces, it's terrible.
It is terrible. And I think 9 seconds it has screen time.
Yeah.
And it was like 107 million or something like that. It cost $1.7 million to make it.
They did say that it was worth the money just for the promotional aspect alone.
I get it, but this was the selling. What drives me nuts is at the end of this movie, they give these guys credit. And then just as an afterthought, and special contributions to Rick Baker. He was the freaking monkey. He was the Kong. He sold this movie. He saved your movie.
And they wouldn't have even done that unless the big stink was made at the end when he realized he wasn't going to get credit at all at the end of the movie.
That is just insane. Special contributions.
No, the reason being, I think that De Laurentiis wanted to fool the world into thinking that what you're seeing
this whole thing was a giant robot the whole way.
And some reviewers actually, in their reviews, refer to it as such. Like, wow. I can't believe what I was watching, and like, because you weren't watching it, idiot.
Right. Yeah, Rambaldi and he didn't even speak English, right? He was Italian.
Yeah, so he needed an interpreter. He couldn't even work with Baker without an interpreter. So just imagine that thing that they built, that 40-foot robot, was what Rambaldi was saying could do everything in the movie. And it could barely, do what it did there.
And I guess the people that were inside, they said they had to have people inside it to hold it together because it was like falling apart. Meanwhile, hydraulic hoses were dripping fluids all over them. They're coming out of the thing screaming, save me. And I guess the hatch was out of his butt. So people pouring out its butt, screaming for their lives.
And a stream of hydraulic fluid coming out of its butt as well.
But of course, we know it's coming because he's in the cage. He's got the crown on. And they were cutting it back and forth between the suit, the facial, up close shots or whatever.
And let me tell you, that set matches completely. The miniature set and the practical set. You wouldn't know that there's a difference going on there. Yeah.
But of course, once again, it's the photographers, and I think one of them was the idiot from Dr. Stoner's Cobra demonstration from last week. Was there going, no photography, please.
Oh,
don't worry, it's escape proof. Yeah, okay.
And, of course, Jeff is the only one that realizes, no, he's going to think that you're hurting her. And he flips out, breaks the cage, unconvincingly drops the cage at one point with the 40-foot Kong, and then steps off the platform. And this is great because it is blue screened, right? But you see him walking on people.
Yes. Yeah.
And when he lifts up his foot, they're just a mush of people.
They're flattened. Yeah.
But they're still moving. They're still alive.
Yeah, they're like kind of but it's a little flopping around.
Yeah. And this is where Fred Wilson gets his. In the TV version, he is fired on screen. where the old man
Yes,
says,
yes.
"We will find you."
Yes,
Petrox.
yeah.
I'm like, old man, you have better things to think about right now.
Yeah, yeah.
than
You've
firing
ruined
this
my
guy.
name. Yeah. This fell apart really quick.
But that sequence wasn't in the theatrical. You don't see him get fired, first of all. And in the theatrical, you do see Kong put his foot down. Originally in the theatrical version, test audiences saw the version where Kong lifts up his foot and all you see is his hat, which means that he escaped. He rolled out. He's not actually dead.
Gotcha.
It's not like he's so pulverized into the ground.
I thought he was stuck to his foot.
But he was meant to, for a possible sequel, come back. So audiences saw that and they were like, no, he needs to die. He needs to definitely die. So in the theatrical, it actually cuts away before his foot lifts. So you don't see just the hat. So you assume that he's dead.
Right.
But in the TV version, they put the original back in where you just see his hat.
The hat.
But watching this version as a kid, I always thought the same thing, that he was either so pulverized into the ground, you can't see him anymore, or he's stuck to the bottom of his foot.
He's stuck to the bottom of the foot. Actually, if he was really smart, Wilson should have just disguised himself as a volleyball and gone back to the island and waited for Tom Hanks to show up.
Wilson, I get it. I get it.
Thank you.
What a that's deserving of The Rock.
That was a reach.
That's deserving of The Rock on the Jungle Cruise.
That joke. He did spend a lot of time tearing stuff up, though.
And another big scene that was cut out of the theatrical is when he takes that car and throws it through the building. That's not the theatrical cut. Yeah.
Imagine trying to explain that to your landlord. Like, how do you get a taxi on the 3rd floor in the window?
That Petrox old man has a point. He's like, this is going to ruin us. You're picking up the tab for all this.
Yeah.
So, and I love the fact that Kong knows to hide.
Yes, that was pretty clever. Yeah, he doesn't even know what a helicopter is, but he's like, they're looking for me.
Yeah, I got to hide behind this building.
Behind this wall over here.
Yep. Yeah. And this is another scene that's cut is when Dwan and Jack are running right after they get out of Shea Stadium. Jack is going into cars looking. He's like, doesn't anybody leave keys in their cars anymore?
That's right. He was looking for
And she says to him, can't you just hotwire it? He's like, sorry.
Oh, and she says, man, you really are uneducated. And I'm like, kick a man. Wow. You don't know how to hotwire a car.
Who knows? Except if you're a criminal, maybe you do.
Right. I don't know how to hotwire a car. I would have been like, you know what? You're on your own.
Right around the time where he's hiding from the helicopter, you see him sniffing. He's sniffing out Dwan. He's like, I sense pretzel. I sense urine. There she is. there she is. Yeah. Talking about the elevated train. We get the train scene here. And that poor woman who's in the white dress, who Kong thinks is Dwan,
grabs her,
picks her up here. Let me down.
Oh, he lets her down. All right.
He does. He's like,
brutal.
Yeah.
But it's funny because these trains still exist, but this to me, I think maybe it's the tagging and the spray painting and the graffiti on the side of the train, but it just screams 70s to me. It's like the Warriors. Like this is the world. Yeah. But this is miniature stuff. This is beautiful. And I know, when he's picking up the train, you can see the wire that's holding the car. He's on a rampage. This is rampage. This is it's like a video game.
And I remember this scene. I had the Viewmaster set of the 76 Kong, and the explosion behind him after he throws the car down, I think is one of the stills.
Oh, nice.
That's always burned into my memory.
That's funny. I was digging up a couple of the weird products that came out of this.
To
possibly share on Instagram, but this whole set piece is really nice. Although I found it funny is they're in the train, he finds it, he grabs it, they escape out the window, which is round, but the model that he's holding, every window square. So it's like, okay.
And so this is where they grab the motorbike and they escape across the Queensboro Bridge, and then they end up in the bar eventually because she tells him, even your own book says monkeys can't swim. Well, this is no regular monkey.
He can swim, first of all. And there's bridges everywhere. But what's the hurry? What do you mean, what's the hurry?
I want a drink. Buy me a drink.
You are self-absorbed. No wonder why you can't get any work. Let's drink to blackout babies. What's that all about?
Yeah.
Remember when we had a blackout and all those babies were born? Imagine this. These are going to be like killer monkey babies.
All the sons and daughters of King
Remember
Kong.
that time when the giant ape was loose in Manhattan and we screwed? Yes, here's our son Kong.
This is where you also see Kong wading through the water. He's not swimming so much as he is wading through the water. And then he comes up on the other side, the Manhattan side, and this is where he walks into all those power cables.
Yeah, like I said, this is the one scene I do not remember that. And then the power goes out in Manhattan, and Jack's like, "Oh, someone must have hit a telephone pole." There's a giant ape loose, and somebody runs into a pole. Yeah, because they saw a giant monkey. That's what
And nobody on the bridge saw him, like just waiting by, you know, on the those.
No, or all the helicopters that have been
Yeah.
chasing him. We can't find him. He's nowhere to be found.
But he does find her in this bar. And while Jack realizes that the view of the trade towers is the same view as back on the island.
Wait a minute, I've seen that before.
Yes. So now Jack is already convinced that Kong can't swim. How is Kong going to make it to the World Trade Center, you know, if he can't swim?
He had one drink. Maybe it went right to his head.
Yeah. He calls up the mayor. He convinces him to get helicopters and nets.
Just the same mayor from Ghostbusters, by the way.
Is it?
No
Is
mayor,
it the same guy?
No, I don't think it is. But no New York mayor wants to believe it.
I would have loved if Murray Hamilton was playing the mayor of New York. There.
That would have been great.
But he tells her
man.
you've got to let Kong climb to the top of the World Trade Center. You can net him there. Then what do you do with him once you net him on the top?
Yeah. Meanwhile, he never saw Kong climbing the spires that were on his island.
Yes.
They
So
were
that's
just
a
like-
leap. That's a leap right there.
So, but this is one of my favorite effects, and it is to me, it was very effective, which is you got the priest coming out of St. Patrick's Cathedral, and you got the light shining down, and then you just see him kind of look up, and then he steps back into the shadow as the giant you never see Kong. It's never a physical effect. It's just a giant shadow that goes from right to left in front of St. Patrick's Cathedral. And when first time I was in Manhattan, I'm like, Kong walked down the street. And it's like, no, he didn't.
You know what I didn't notice about that scene I never really paid much attention to it because I was always waiting for that gag with the priest. The empty horse carriages
that are running down the
go
street.
by.
Yeah.
Which is a really haunting image.
No, it's
you
chaos.
know?
You got a giant monster on the loose in Manhattan.
Yeah.
Traffic would have been backed up for miles. But no, there didn't seem to be anybody on the streets. He goes by the public library, so he's making his way down Fifth Avenue. So yeah, there is a point A to point B kind of a thing. So they did do their homework a little well.
And the set, the miniature set that's at the base of the Trade Center towers is beautiful.
Yeah.
And so you see the first, few floors of like the mock-up of the buildings in relation to the size of Kong.
Yep.
And it's perfect. It's just perfect. And the silence of like all these National Guardsmen just like silently looking at him, and you hear the wind of the coming off the water because the trade towers are right down there by the water. And it's just a beautiful, beautiful moment where he's looking up, he looks at her, and she's like, she knows what he's thinking. She's like, no, don't do it. Don't do it.
Does it feel like that's like a full moon for like the entire movie?
Yeah. Everywhere they're going.
Quick, hurry up. The tears of the moon are flourishing. Let's go get him.
And what kind of footholds and handholds are on the Twin Towers? I wouldn't think that there's much of anything
The
there.
scaffolding on the outside was like separated from the structure on the inside. You think with his weight, he would be tearing this thing apart as he's climbing up.
Right.
He was very gingerly.
One of the shots where Kong is climbing up, it's with a blue screen and backdrop. You see the Empire State Building in the background as he's climbing up. Yeah, which was a nice nod, I thought.
You should have climbed that one, dude.
Brings back so many memories because I've probably a handful of times I went to the top of the Trade Center towers to the observation deck, and where Jeff Bridges comes out of the elevator, and there's that little incline that brings you up to the that he runs up, and then he sees Kong's face like climbing up outside.
That's 107th floor.
I think so. I think so.
Like that,
like Kong's up there, and he has one moment of rest where he's like, he's made it.
He's like,
he's looking out on the city.
That's a nice view.
And then he's got that look in his eye again when he's looking at her.
Oh, I know. He's like, listen, I just climbed all the way up here for you. Let's consummate this thing right here, right now. But no, those flamethrower guys had to put a monkey wrench into that.
And then the guy down on the blow, he's like, what are those men doing up there? Didn't they get my orders? It's like, no, that's flamethrower Johnny. You can't hold him back.
And you can't tell him anything. His whole backstory: his family was killed by a bunch of ravenous monkeys
Oh.
that escaped from a circus. He's got a vendetta to fulfill.
So this causes Kong to leap from one tower to the other.
Causes him to catch on fire.
Yes.
Causes him. You know how expensive that suit is? As a kid, this is a super, super cheat because we've been sold on this idea that he straddles these buildings in all the promotions, that he is just this massive monster. And it's like, you lose the scale. At least on the Empire State Building, he looks impressive.
Right.
Right?
But, because the towers were so big themselves.
That's just it. Yeah. I mean, he's literally and he barely made it when he jumped. That was a little bit of a letdown.
So then the choppers come, and now this is heavily edited in the television version because it is a bloody mess in the theatrical version. There's blood packets blowing up everywhere, all over Kong in the theatrical version as he's getting shot. In this version, it's very chaste.
Pretty cut down, yeah.
It's cut down. You just see him bloodied, after the fact, after the choppers fly off. But he does manage to take one down. You see it crash into the top of the building.
That was nice. That's a nice effect.
Yeah. Then, of course, the big teary moment at the end where he falls. Now, this is a really dated bad effect of him actually falling. Because it looks like
he like shows up halfway through.
Yeah, he just appears.
Right. You could have cut that scene 2 seconds.
Now, apparently, they were really, literally, this is the end of the movie, and this is one of the last effect shots that they did, and they were rushing to get this done. So nobody was happy with the way that this turned out. So just cut it. Don't even show anything. Just show her reaction as he's falling.
Yeah,
that's all you need.
It would have had the same impact, no pun intended, if you just showed him, at the bottom.
Right.
Already splattered.
So then, speaking of that, somehow she magically gets there down to the bottom immediately, because she's there, and you see that big, again, the practical mock-up, but this time it's dead Kong.
Oh, this thing's so impressive.
With the fake broken sidewalk all around him. And and you see the reporters like standing on his chest taking pictures.
Yeah, they're cockroaches. You're walking on a dead body.
Now, apparently this isn't far from what really happened on the night of shooting, because they shot this over 2 nights. The first night, about 3,000 people showed up because they put out an ad in the paper, show up, get in a movie for free. Yeah. And people looted the dead body of Kong. They stole his eyeball. And
somebody has this somewhere. This is the ultimate collectible right here.
And one guy grabbed Jessica Lange and was trying to pull her
Listen,
off.
if you're going to keep anything from this movie, it's going to be Jessica Lange. I'm sorry. If you want to keep a prop, that's the one right there.
So, they barely got shots in or made it out alive of the first night. Jessica didn't want to come back and film the second night.
I don't blame her. Put a stand in.
They coerced her to do it. 30,000 people showed up.
30,000 people showed up, and it looks like 30,000 people in this.
But the funny thing is that it was more unruly the night before, where there was less people. There was actually law and order going on the second night.
Show up. Yeah.
But there was going to be a third night of filming, which the Port Authority shut down because they were afraid that the base of the Trade Center would cave in, because there's a plaza underneath there.
Yeah. That's crazy. This is a very, very impressive piece, a set piece, because it's so iconic. I don't know what else you can say about this movie. It's not perfect by any means, but it is our Kong. Like I said, this is the movie we knew and love.
And I searched out that John Barry soundtrack, and it is beautiful. Like, even you hear at the end the music swelling.
Yeah,
it's tear-inducing at the end, and she sells it.
She sells it, and she sells. I love the fact her makeup never runs, which is very impressive. But you don't get that. 'Twas beauty that killed the beast. You don't even need that. He's not there. He's not there to punctuate the.
No, he's not. And it's. I think that test audience was right, that you need to see him die. You need to know that he's gone and he was punished for what he did.
But you see her, what's poignant about the fact that you see her and she's completely surrounded by the paparazzi. This is what she wanted. She wants to be in pictures. And now she is famous for basically killing this thing. So you got what you wish for. Be careful what you wish for. And she's just absolutely heartbroken. And it's very like
And she loses Jack because there's a scene earlier, which was also cut from the theatrical, where he says it wouldn't work out between them because Kong would always haunt them. And
I can't
that
be with
line
you.
comes back when he approaches her, then he stops and he's like,
Yeah.
this isn't, yeah. So she loses him and she loses Kong all at
Because
once.
at one point he says, did she offer the marriage or he did? Something
He
about-
did.
Yeah.
Because he was asking her like to run off with him. Like
Yeah.
when
Let's
she
just go.
stayed with Wilson.
Let's
Yeah.
go. Yeah.
Oh man. So let's go back in time and let's look into the history of this right now. Now that we've had such fun
Okay.
going
Yes.
through the story. The teaser poster came out in 1975. King Kong for Christmas was the tagline. And this was the iconic shot of him straddling the World Trade Center towers. But he had a jet in his hand.
Right.
And it was jets around him instead of choppers.
Yep.
And it didn't have that face that were so, it was like a really rudimentary looking face. So it wasn't the final version of the artwork that we're so used to seeing.
Well, so talk about this artwork for a little bit, because John Berkeley, like I said, he was commissioned to create these in various situations to sell the script. So he created these in 74. They're basically comps. They're not meant to be super hyper realistic illustrations. They're selling an idea. So I think he had one with a snake on Skull, at the wall. He's wrecking the train. There's actually one where he's on the boat, which is rarely, I couldn't even find a Google image of it.
And there's another one where he's climbing up the towers, or where he's actually climbing up the towers.
Right. And Shea Stadium, which is, like you said, that's where this all kind of takes place. So this artwork was never really meant to be like plastered all over posters. It's to sell the idea of what this movie could be.
This is what ended up on the glasses, the fast food glasses.
Yeah. And but they're iconic. They're beautiful.
And
again, they're conceptual. They're not, like you said, the jet planes. I'm looking at your shirt as we speak here. The fuselage, just like you can't even tell they don't have wings. It's like, what is he even holding?
Paramount liked the face on one of these renderings so much, without his input. They took that same face, and superimposed it on every single one of his portraits. That's why Kong's face looks the same on every single one, with that roar, expression.
Yeah.
So going back to the idea, Eisner claimed I don't know what he was doing at the time.
He was probably like 12 years old.
Yeah. He claimed the idea to do a remake came from him as early as 74, and he pitched it to Paramount. De Laurentiis claims that he got the idea because his daughter had a poster of King Kong.
Right.
So I don't know who's right, or somebody went to Paramount with the idea.
But meanwhile, I read Universal was set to create a legend of King Kong until this was announced.
De Laurentiis went to RKO for the rights. Universal went to RKO for the rights, and they sold them to both. I'm like, how does that work? But De Laurentiis was the only one that actually had a contract with RKO.
Okay.
So when Universal,
but again, he's smart. Like I said, by hiring this illustrator and getting this, in 74, he got ahead of the curve.
Yeah.
He's like, you got to show me something. You just give me anything on a piece of board that I can show and say, here's what I'm thinking. This is 43 years after the original. This is like if somebody decided to remake Star Wars today.
Again, at that time when you were a kid, 1933 seems so far in the past.
Black and white. I mean, it's all, the like you said, the Willis O'Brien, the stop motion, even though it was revolutionary at the time, is dated. And, most kids don't want to see a black and white movie. Some of us are different. Some of us, went all in. So the idea of remaking this was a smart move.
This Universal project was more of a straight remake, but the De Laurentiis version obviously was going in a different direction. So he was undeterred that Universal said that they had a deal as well, because he was the only one with an actual contract with RKO. So he pressed on, the artwork was commissioned. And he wanted to focus on the love story, like a Beauty and the Beast kind of a aspect, which, he did. And he also wanted to be knowing. He wanted to let the audience in on the joke. And I think it really balances the awe and the self-referential humor as well. And I think that they really hit upon that really nicely, that blend. The first choice of director was Roman Polanski.
That is an interesting call right there.
Yeah. He was not interested. He was not interested. So they get John Gullerman. I don't really know what else he did.
No, I didn't really see. And you figure Bridges was coming off Oscar nominations.
Yeah.
Last Picture Show?
Last Picture Show, yes.
Yeah.
So he was already a name. It wasn't like he was introducing Jeff Bridges. Audiences knew him already, even though he was so young at the time.
Yeah. I did read Chris Sarandon was offered the role first. Jack Skellington?
And Fright Night, Chris Sarandon.
Oh, that's right. I forgot that one. Yep.
But Bridges took it immediately. King Kong was his favorite movie as a kid.
Did you say no?
How could you say no? How could you say no?
What? The whole thing's going to be a giant robot. I'm in.
Yeah.
And then he's like, wait a minute. It's no robot. Stupid robot.
So Universal, even though Dino was on the road to making his movie, they were still undeterred as well, because they were saying that they had the rights to the book. It came down to a race of who could get film in the can first. And Dino eventually won that race.
I was going to say, you got Dino.
But Jessica Lange still had braces. She was getting her teeth fixed when she auditioned for the role. But it was obvious, I think, that she was the one. Meryl Streep also went for it.
I did read that.
Dino didn't think that she was attractive enough.
Oh, that's harsh. That's harsh. Jessica Lange was dating Mikhail Baryshnikov at the time.
After the fact. I don't think she was. I don't think she was during this.
Oh, okay.
Gotcha. Yeah, he probably went to go see King Kong. He's like, get me her number, please.
Yeah, right. I did see that it was released in 1,200 theaters, which up to that point was the biggest release.
Unheard of.
Yeah.
Unheard of
theaters.
At that point.
Yeah, and the most expensive, by the way.
Yeah.
All on that damn robot.
This is only 6 months before Star Wars came out. So whatever records Kong made were soon to be broken.
Still, listen, if Star Wars didn't come along, we'd be probably talking about this a lot more.
Yeah, I know. Eventually Universal settled, because really you'd be shooting yourself in the foot to do 2 concurrent King Kong movies coming out at the same time. But Universal made the deal where they would be able to make their own as long as they waited 10 years after the first one came out. And eventually they did with Peter Jackson. So the Peter Jackson, that's more than 10 years. Yeah, but that was in development for a long time as well, without Jackson.
I did read that Joe Piscopo and Forrest Ackerman both are in this movie.
Really?
Yeah.
So De Laurentiis did not want to use stop motion. Initially, what they were going to do was facial applications, much like Planet of the Apes. Can you imagine that?
It would have been better in stop motion animation.
That would have been really creepy, I think. It would have been really creepy.
I mean, because you can listen. I know that Baker's wearing the lenses in his eyes, the contacts, and they had big issues, but it just has so much facial expression in what they were able to pull off.
It does. And so they approached Baker first. He had done It's Alive. He had done some work on Live and Let Die. He did Schlock, which he did a very convincing suit for Schlock, the John Landis comedic horror movie. Octoman, I don't know if he'd want to put that on his resume. But
yeah, you gotta listen. We all gotta start somewhere.
Yeah. So they bring him on because they knew that he could do a good suit. He vetoed the Planet of the Apes route. He's like, no. Okay. This has to be like the greatest gorilla suit ever made. But he had already committed to doing Squirm, which was the horror worm movie.
Yes.
So he said, I can't start this until I'm done with Squirm. Yep. So they're like, okay. In the meantime, Carlo Rambaldi comes on because De Laurentiis,
his connection to Laurentiis,
knows him, and he swears hands down because his specialty was cable operated props. I can do it full size. It can do 40 foot tall. It can do everything that the script requires. I can do it full size. Everybody.
Did you read the script?
Everybody was skeptical, of course, of this, except Dino. Dino was sold on it. He's like, this guy can do it. He's my
would
man.
Never lie to me.
So now Baker comes back. Like, what does this guy say he can do? Dino assured Baker, Rambaldi's the guy. He can pull this off. He's a genius. He can do it. But they wanted Baker to still do a suit, but only as backup for the 40-foot robot. Rambaldi also wanted to do a suit as backup because he had ideas for a suit. So they do a suit off.
Yeah,
they give them both. I don't know what it was.
2 weeks or whatever. Something
2 weeks, whatever, to come up with a prototype suit to display for the producers. So Baker goes, he's like him and one other guy in his workshop. They work up a suit. He has it ready. He goes to the suit off, and he's told that Rambaldi couldn't finish his in time. And they're giving him a few more weeks. So he's like, what? Then give me a few more weeks.
Right.
But they had to start shooting screen tests using the suit. So they used what Baker gave them, and they got so used to it that when Rambaldi finally was ready and he comes out with this ape man looking thing that was very much like the prosthetic Planet of the Apes look.
Yeah, they described it more like a Neanderthal.
Yeah, nobody liked it.
Yeah.
Because they were
That's
so
not
used.
King Kong. Do you even know what King Kong is?
So Baker got his way at the end. And then obviously the 40-foot robot, it became apparent quickly that it was not going to be able to do what Rambaldi promised that it was going to do.
Did this guy work after this, Rambaldi?
Yeah, he's a big name in these things. He did. This guy, Glenn Robinson, came in because he took Rambaldi's blueprints for the 40-foot Kong and he had to make it a reality. And Robinson also worked on the big hands. And I just applaud this guy for his work on the big hands. Even though Rambaldi could not deliver on the 40-foot Kong and they didn't like his ape suit, they still made Baker work with him on his suit. Yeah. And this is where Baker does concede that, yes, the mechanics that Rambaldi brought to the mask of his Kong suit really took it to the next level. But yeah, the big Kong was 42 feet. It was covered in horsehair, 6.5 tons. It was originally going to be used in the altar scene, on location on the ground at the World Trade Center, and in the reveal scene, but eventually they only used like 6 seconds of it in the reveal.
And we could have easily done without those 6 seconds.
Yes.
Because it is so jarring and so obvious.
But Dino insisted he wanted to use it in the big reveal in Chase Stadium because he loved the publicity that he knew that it was going to get. And he was right. It did. Yeah. It did get the publicity.
Even though we never got a robot.
Yeah.
I don't even think you could pull that off today.
But just imagine like Baker having to eat this.
Even in that interview, he's like, listen, I was a 25-year-old kid. There was a lot of things that were thrown at me that I just said, I can do that. And he goes, yeah, I was cocky. He's still cocky because he could back it up.
Yeah.
Rick Baker. Rick Baker went on from this to Star Wars. Yeah. It's very embarrassing when you hear this whole story about how they treated him and that little kind of dismissive special contributions at the end of the way. He did make a mention of that because I guess when they were doing the Q&A, it was after they had watched a movie. So that just, it's got to just stick with him.
Yeah. So Baker was not satisfied completely with the final suit. You and I think it's fabulous.
Oh, sure. Well, that's any artist. Any artist is going to look back, in retrospect, you're like, look at Lucas. He's like, this, the movie that we love and adored. He's like, it's maybe 75% of what I wanted it to be.
Right.
You go back and change it. It is what it is now.
Going back to the giant snake, there was supposed to be a scene where it attacks the search party before its fight with Kong, but because of budget, they dropped that scene.
That's probably good.
Yeah.
We're already well into it. It was nominated for special effects, Oscar-wise.
Yes, it was. And it was given a special achievement award at the Oscars. But it was Rambaldi and his team that got that. It wasn't Baker.
Yeah, that's bullshit. I do want to point out, and I can't take credit for this, but when you see it, you can't unsee it. At the very end with the giant life-size Kong in the plaza, and the crowds are all around, and the camera pulls back, and you just see the sea of people. In the far left corner is a guy with no shirt on, waving to the camera. It pulls back, and I'm on it. It's like, there he is. So you have to go back and just see this one little scene, and it's so obvious when you see it. It's hysterical. Oh. Like, all right, everyone pretend to be excited. The giant ape is now dead.
And this one guy, right?
Just waving at the camera. Yep. Listen, they're not paid extras.
No.
That guy right now, that guy's probably like, you watch the end of Kong? I'm in it. That's me.
This guy's family is so sick of hearing this story, I'm sure.
I want to hear that story every day.
So Baker wasn't supposed to get credit at all in the
Well,
credits or
so
anything.
they wanted it to just be completely mystical that this was a robot.
He didn't want to.
They didn't want it to explain.
They didn't want to tip their hand or give any indication that this was a guy in a suit.
Yeah, welcome.
But Time Magazine outed them. An article came out in October, 2 months before the movie's release, and Baker was interviewed. So the beans were spilled. Time gave the scoop that it was a guy in a suit. So they were forced at that point to give Baker credit after the Time Magazine article came out. The premiere after party was broadcast live on NBC on December 17th.
So what, we could just sit and watch all the actors drink?
All the actors drink and appear on the red carpet, apparently. Most reviews were actually positive at the time. There's this real legend that's built up around this movie that it was a box office bomb, which is not the case at all, and that the critics hammered it, but the reviews were largely positive. Time Magazine says there are 2 excellent performances, Grodin and Kong. Jessica Lange did kind of get slighted in a lot of the reviews, unfortunately. The box office it made was $90 million. It cost $24 million to make. It made $90.
That's it?
At the box office. But think of today's dollars. I'm
thinking 1.7 was the robot for 9 seconds of movie.
Right. So $24 million is not that much.
No.
So, and it made 3 times its budget.
Okay.
Now, this is a little bit nebulous because since it was released in December of 76, it made most of its money in 77.
77.
So the years got split. It was the 4th highest moneymaker of 76 and this 5th highest moneymaker of 77.
So it could have easily climbed into the top 2 in 76.
If it was in 1 year.
Released.
Yeah, if it was in 1
Wow.
year. So it was a hit. It was, by all accounts, it was a hit. Some reviews, like I said before, actually thought that the whole thing was done by a robot.
Well, that's marketing for you. That's
As a freaking kid, I knew it was a guy in a suit. Come on.
Well,
The New York Times. The New York Times.
They fooled me.
Where's the
Did they
review?
retract that? Did they be like, yeah, we were fooled?
Vincent Canby at the New York Times, a dazzling display of what special effects people can do when commissioned to construct a 40-foot tall ape who can walk, make fondling gestures, and smile a lot.
Fondling gestures. We need a robot, but he's got a fondle. You know what I did find interesting, which is Peter Cullen gets credit for the vocalizations of Kong. You know who Peter Cullen is, right?
Tell me, who is Peter Cullen?
He's Optimus Prime, baby.
Oh!
Yeah, he's a voice actor from going way back, apparently.
So the non-roaring aspects of Kong were Peter Cullen?
I don't know. He does get credit.
All right.
On his wiki page. Now he may have put that in there, but I did read that he did the vocalization. So it's gotta be, those screams are not human. They gotta be mixed in with other stuff, animal roars and whatnot, but
right.
You bring a guy in.
Now, as you alluded to before, shortly after the release of the movie, the big 40-foot tall Kong was leased to an amusement park in Buenos Aires for $100,000 a year.
Huh. They got to make their money back somehow, right?
Yeah. Then eventually, after they were done with it, it came back to the U.S., put in storage, ended up in a junk pile along with the big hands, which is very sad. You'd think that should be preserved.
Are we talking about the robot? Or are we talking about the plaza?
I'm talking. This was the 40-foot tall. The plaza one went to Italy.
Yes, that's what I read.
The 40-foot tall went to Buenos Aires, and then that got junked as soon as it got back to the U.S. Dead Kong went to an amusement park in Italy, and they put it in a warehouse, and they put a bridge over the chest so you could walk over it, and they charged, what, $10 a person?
Oh, you get my money all day long. Are you kidding me? I'd be still standing there staring at this thing.
And that
they
was
did show pictures, and it looks really cheap.
Yeah, it looks it's all, they had to take it apart to ship it and put it back together. And
like
it was
you
all
said,
messed
people
up.
were stealing stuff. So when the people that were the 2 guys that were being interviewed about that whole process, and I guess that there were pieces missing, parts, hair was torn off it. And
yeah. And these two guys, they were the messengers that were on
Messengers
set.
is what they called them. Yeah.
They got the job of shipping the dead Kong to Italy,
Yeah.
and they realized it was such bad shape that they had to get some movie people to help them fix it up.
To refurbish it.
Yeah. But that got junked too. So sad that all these
that is sad.
props.
Yes.
NBC paid an unprecedented amount to De Laurentiis to show this, $19.5 million for 2 or 3 showings over 5 years, and which is what we saw for this podcast. And like we said, 45 minutes were added to pad this out so they could show it over 2 nights on NBC. But that meant that they had to reshuffle music cues and
you got to sink more money into this thing.
Yeah, so
you can't
so
just
it's
take those scenes and add them back.
So if you're completely used to watching the theatrical cut, it's a very disconcerting experience because it's messed around with when you watch this television version. But you do have these added sequences that you won't be able to see anywhere else.
That's interesting.
Yeah, the whole thing is.
If anything, now you get the 3-hour cut in the theater, and then on TV they edit it.
Yeah, it's the other way around.
The other way, right? So, did you see all the proposed sequels? Only one of them ever came to fruition, which was King Kong Lives.
Which is such a letdown.
86, right?
Such a letdown.
86.
By that time, why bother?
They still, I guess, by then, like you said, it's, you got a whole new generation. You got another 10 plus years of kids watching on television. So it does have name recognition. But King Kong in Africa, which, what was he going to do? Go chase some elephants? Like, I don't know, like what the whole, the Bionic Kong, which obviously they were looking to capitalize on Bionic Man and Bionic Woman in 76, 70, whatever, somewhere in there. Kong versus Orca, because I just mentioned Orca earlier as a Dino De Laurentiis. And if you ever see, if you were a kid of our age who ever read comic books, that movie poster for Orca was large on the back of comic books for months promoting it. And it's a giant killer whale with a little, who's that? Richard Harris.
Yes.
Like stab at thee. It's like a Moby Dick sized friggin' whale. Obviously, we know it's not that big, so they would have to morph him up. But again, you got a gorilla against a sea creature that can't come out on land. Like,
yeah, that's dead in the water. That project.
Yeah, and obviously that was just a Jaws ripoff, but that movie kind of traumatized me as well, with Bo Derek's leg getting ripped off there.
Yeah, so that's another one of those movies that you'll never forget. That and another big one I remember being advertised in comics was The Island of Dr. Moreau. I saw that.
Yeah, we've
quite
talked
a bit
about that. That is very disturbing. Yeah, and then King Kong in Moscow. So is he just like doing a land tour? Like
I assume all these sequels were proposed much earlier than 1986, but
I'm sure this was probably like right on the cusp, right on the heels of this.
Yeah, none of the original cast wanted to do a sequel, from what I understand.
Man, why would you? You killed the damn thing.
Yeah.
Why do I need to remake this? And we didn't bring up Kong Skull Island, which Legendary has done a really good job. That is
absolutely
fantastic. Listen, this is it's a monster of a movie.
It definitely is. And I was on the fence about it, but if you will indulge me after watching this again and knowing how much this meant to me as a kid, I'm inducting this into the 5 Bucket Club.
Well deserved.
Sound the fanfare. There it is. King Kong in the 5 Bucket Club.
I can't. Listen, I'm not going to argue with it. That was pretty damn close anyways, so. I did mention, to remind me, I have a personal Rick Baker story. And if you will indulge me for 2 minutes. So let's paint a picture. 1989, young nerf herder Jeff was working in Manhattan at a little mom and pop ad agency. And I lived in Queens at the time, but I spent, as someone growing up upstate, Manhattan was Emerald City to me. It was just a magical place. And again, a lot of it has to do with seeing it on screen in a lot of these movies. Like I said, going to St. Patrick's Cathedral, Kong walked right by here. Going by the New York Public Library. Oh my God, the Ghostbusters came running out of like those moments, those beats, World Trade Center. While I didn't really tie it into Kong, it was more like Miami Vice at the time, you know. But all these places that just loomed large in my imagination. And I had an art director. His name was Larry Aaron, and it took me a while to remember his name, by the way. And he comes to me one day. I was a production artist in the back, and it was a little small. There was only 3 of us in our department, and he had got tickets. It was an invite to a private screening of Star Trek V: The Final Frontier by the special effects house that was doing all the miniature model work. He couldn't go. Knew I was a nerd. Do you want to go? Do I want to go? So left work that day. Well, I don't know, it was somewhere in Times Square. And I'm a stupid kid. I'm 21 years old. March up. I'm standing in line. Here it is. I'm looking, you know, fearless. There's a guy at the front door and he's checking names. There's 2 girls in front of me and they have a pass. But what they failed to do is acknowledge the fact, or they acknowledge the fact that someone had given them the pass. Their names did not match up with the name on the invite. Sorry, no, you can't get in. So now I'm like, fuck. I'm like, this is not gonna work. I'm a stupid kid. They're not gonna believe I'm some art director, you know, seasoned art director at that. So sure enough, I come up, name Larry Aaron. There you go. All right, you're in. So I walk into this theater, and it's a small little theater. I couldn't tell. It's probably somewhere in Times Square. So I sit down, and I'm already like, you know, my time is limited because someone's going to rat me out. Someone's going to be like, this kid. I see people pouring in. People are pouring in. People are shaking hands or whatever. Hey, congratulations. Isn't it? I don't recognize anybody. 2 gentlemen come and sit behind me. One has a Paramount hat on, baseball cap. The other one has an ET hat on. Now, it wasn't Spielberg. I know that for a fact. But they were somebody big in Paramount. After the movie, and now I will tell you right now, the special effects in this movie are not good. The miniature work is not good. After the movie, the lights come up, everyone comes out and they start shaking hands, and there's a line of people. And I just got to get out of here. I'm not going to introduce myself as Larry Aaron. I'm not engaging in conversation with anybody because the minute I open my mouth, it's going to become very apparent I do not belong here. These are all like old guys. These are all like, this is a white man's club. And as I'm making my way out, the first guy in line is Rick Baker. And I know Rick Baker because Rick Baker's name is burned into my skull from his experience with Star Wars. And the fact that he showed up, he had his own trading card. Rick Baker, this guy Revolution, American Werewolf in London. I mean, like this name. And I just kind of like looked by and I'm like, I shook his hand and then just went out, and that was as close. I wasn't gonna ask for an autograph. I wasn't gonna, like I said, I wasn't gonna, you know, I had infiltrated. I got in, I saw the movie. It wasn't good. I was surrounded by people I probably should have known, or an opportunity to maybe go from what I was doing into a whole other, you know, genre. But I didn't. I Rick Baker, there he was. I shook his hand and I left.
Now, when you say there was a line, was this like at a wake where everybody's receiving the people coming out of the theater?
It was a congratulatory kind of a thing. It was like the guys were lined up. There was 4 or 5 guys lined up as you're like leaving. Like no one got up in front of the screen, introduced the movie. Nobody told anybody who they were. Like I guess you just assumed that you knew who these guys were. They're all in the same industry. So afterwards, they're all just up there and they're like, you know, guys are coming up. Oh, great work. That was nice. You know, congratulations. This, you know, it's a Star Trek movie. One of the lesser ones, but it's still a Star Trek movie. Yeah, I had to get out of there as quick as possible, but I did have a brush with Rick Baker.
Now, if you knew what you know now, you could have said to him, that effer Rambaldi.
I know, right? Rambaldi. Dude, you got screwed on that Kong film.
He'd be like, I did. You're right.
Yeah. No. I had no clue at the time. So that is my personal Rick Baker story. Nice. And I can all thank you for that. Larry Aaron for, you know, allowing me to be him for 2-3 hours.
Yeah.
So there you go. That is Kong. Woo.
That is Kong.
That is I think this episode is the 8th wonder of the world.
I think you are correct. Yes. I can tell you next week won't be half as long. well, we knew going in that this was going to be a big one. Yeah, well, especially because next week is a DC movie, but it's a special DC movie.
It is a special because it is getting good buzz.
And it's got our beloved James Gunn at the helm.
Well, I think this is half the reason.
Yeah, of course.
And of course, you can't bring up, next week he's going to have his day, and hopefully this movie will do gangbusters. And but sure enough, I'm doing news research this morning before we hit record, and the whole tweet controversy and Disney firing him. This is 3 years ago, and yet here it is at the top of the page on Screen Rant. So it'll never go away.
No.
People will always throw it back in his face or what. Listen, we all do stupid crap. I'm sorry. But yeah, Suicide Squad.
Next
And someone's
week.
like, wait, they remade it? Well, technically it's not a remake, but
it's the Suicide Squad.
Yeah, exactly.
The first one was
I see the difference.
The first one was Suicide Squad. This is the Suicide Squad.
What about the Suicide Squad?
The tomato.
Regardless. I'm looking forward to it because I do like his take on things. And I think that this is going to be very kind of, we see, I don't want to be a rehash of Guardians. Guardians is a gem. And it was something I think that none of us expected. So
I don't think it will be. I don't think it will be.
I want to come out and still despise these characters.
Yeah.
You don't need to redeem them at all, to me. And I have no attachment. A DC movie, Harley Quinn's coming back. I did like her in that Harley Quinn movie. Birds of Prey, if you want.
Birds of Prey, yes. Yeah. Along with Suicide Squad.
We're going to go just as irreverent, which I hate to say that, 10 years later, a movie like this would never be made because I think it came out in 2011. It's not that old.
It's not that old. No,
but it is very controversial, I'm going to say, because of the content, the way the characters are portrayed. And I think that's half its charm. So, you know what? The movie in question is Tropic Thunder. So we have two groups, a-holes going into the jungle, and we'll see what happens.
Yeah.
There may be a correlation between the two.
Hopefully.
Unlikable characters that may or may not redeem themselves. Who knows? But that is it. Suicide Squad, yeah. Tropic Thunder. So I didn't even realize that. SS and TT.
Alliteration at its finest.
There you go. At its finest.
But if you've stuck around this long to find out what we're doing next week, thank you so much.
Yes, thank you very much.
Yeah.
We appreciate it.
Yes.
Every week. Listen, we just do this for our own amusement. The fact that someone else is listening is gratis.
Yeah, try the veal this week, please.
And on that note, have a good week.
Bye.
Check.
Hello, everybody. If you liked the podcast you just heard, then please follow TMI on all of our social media outlets. First and foremost, email us at tmipodcast2018@gmail.com. That is tmipodcast2018@gmail.com.
And you can follow us on Twitter at TMI_podcast2018. Stop over, say hi, give us a compliment. We'd love to hear from you.
Awesome. Make sure you follow us on Instagram as well, which is also TMI_podcast2018.
And of course, we are on Facebook, facebook.com/TMI Podcast 2018. And it should be noted, we also have a community page, so join the forum.
And if you like to watch YouTube, you can see us at TMI Podcast 2018, all one word. Look for the popcorn bucket.
Popcorn bucket. Or you could just go to our website, which has every link there, TMIconfessionalspodcast.com. And we'll see you at the concession stand.
We'll save some popcorn for you.
Estimated monkey time.